Chapter 23:16. Qin Zhao and Li Pan both ate something. Then they sat down and rested, waiting for the time to pass. There was no obvious change in time in Desolate Bazaar. However, Chen Zhao and Li Pan could feel the changes in the spiritual qi. The spiritual qi seemed to have become denser. Beep! Just then, Chen Zhao heard his phone beep. It was 7 o'clock. For some reason, Li Pan suddenly felt pressured. An unbearable pressure surged into her heart. Just then, Chen Zhao stood up and started moving his limbs. Hey, is it about to start? Li Pan became even more nervous. The third night. She didn't think that she would have to face the third night one day. Yes, Chen Zhao replied indifferently. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared in the originally dusky sky. Then the crack grew bigger and bigger. Li Pan looked up at the sky, shock written all over her face. That was because the crack in the sky was actually an eye, a huge blood-red eye. It spanned the entire sky and seemed even larger than Desolate Bazaar. What was this? Something like that would appear on the third night? What a joke! How could something like that appear on the third night? The huge eye's pupil moved left and right. In the end, it focused on where Chen Zhao was. No, more accurately, it was staring at little Jerlin. What is that? What happened? Li Pan asked in fear. Don't worry about anything, Chen Zhao said calmly. When I need your moonlight magic, just use it. You don't have to do anything before I ask you to. Hey, do you really think that's something that should have appeared? Li Pan's voice was filled with fear. Don't worry. My daughter is also on the third night. I'm very experienced, Chen Zhao answered perfunctorily. Then he waved his hand. Okay, looks like we're going to get busy. At that moment, a strange creature appeared in the gigantic red eye. When those things emerged from the red eye, they were only small dots due to the distance. But when they approached, Li Pan's scalp exploded. They were countless monsters. They were 100-meter-long winged, black-skinned snakes. There was an explosion of numbers. Chen Zhao frowned. The things in the sky weren't normal creatures, but they weren't hell creatures either. They didn't have a demonic aura. The angelic crystal he had set up beforehand did not work. Chen Zhao had thought that the attacking monsters on Silent Night were either spirits or hell creatures. Angelic crystals were extremely useful against both spirits and hell creatures. Moreover, with the angelic crystals he had set up, he was confident that he could destroy even a demon army led by a great lord. But in the end, what in the world was this monster that popped out? Wasn't Lilith deeply related to hell and demons? But why wasn't it a creature of the real world or a creature of hell? Their auras were very unfamiliar to Chen Zhao. Let's run, Li Pan said while trembling with fear. Can you outrun them? Chen Zhao looked back at Lilith. But, all right, it's none of your business now. I'll talk to you when I need you. Chen Zhao moved. He pushed off with both feet and shot into the sky. Spiderwebs appeared on the ground. What amazing jumping ability! Li Pan's eyes widened as she watched Chen Zhao soar into the sky. But Chen Zhao was just one person. Compared to the winged snakes, he was like an ant. Moreover, the direction he was jumping towards seemed to be the mouth of the leading snake. That's right. Damn. Is that guy committing suicide? Li Pan stood up abruptly and watched as Chen Zhao charged into the snake's mouth. Then the giant snake closed its mouth. It's over. Li Pan's mind went blank. He's dead. That guy is dead for sure. Then it's my turn. Damn. Why did I agree to face third night? He died a quick death. But what did he mean by throwing his daughter to him? What should I do now? Just as Li Pan was hesitating, the body of the snake in the sky suddenly twisted. Then it exploded in the sky. Blood rained down from the sky. Chen Zhao was holding a huge heart. This huge heart was dug out from the body of the giant snake. He could feel that the heart contained a large amount of magic power. Based on his past experience, The more magic power there was in the flesh, the better the quality. Thus, Qin Zhao had left the heart behind out of habit. Li Pan's jaw dropped. She stared at Chen Zhao, who was hovering in the sky with the heart raised high. That guy can fly. That guy could fly. And he could even move such a huge thing. Why didn't he just fly me down from the building? Li Pan was filled with resentment. Suddenly, a bloody mouth bit at Qin Zhao. Be careful! Li Pan called out in alarm, but her voice couldn't travel that far. Qin Zhao started moving again. He turned around and punched. In an instant, the snake's body exploded, blood and flesh splattering everywhere. Li Pan's pupils constricted. Yesterday, when she and Ederson fought Qin Zhao, she felt that Qin Zhao was real. He really had mercy. Yesterday, Chen Zhao had also punched Ederson, but Ederson had only been unconscious for half a day. He didn't explode like the snake in the sky. Chen Zhao felt that it was a pity that he had gone too far. Chen Zhao put away the heart in his hand and wondered if he should find a chef who knew how to cook magic creatures. After all, he had collected many magic creatures, but he had only cooked them using the most ordinary methods. Chen Zhao felt that there should be more ways to cook these magic creatures to release all the magic power in the meat. As Chen Zhao's thoughts ran wild, he killed another dozen snakes in the sky. Compared to the total number, it was only a small portion. But Chen Zhao's face was full of grief. Oh no, I didn't collect their hearts in time. Li Pan's expression had completely frozen. She couldn't believe her eyes. It must be an illusion. It must be an illusion. But the more she hypnotized herself, the more numb her scalp became. That guy was so powerful. In front of him, the giant snakes in the sky couldn't fight back at all. It was a one-sided massacre. Chapter 23:17. Suddenly, Li Pan saw a huge head fly toward her. She squatted on the ground in fear, hugging her head and shivering. But the next moment, she heard a whistling sound. When she looked up again, she saw the huge head fall a few meters away. Looking at the huge head and comparing it to himself, Li Pan could clearly feel how small he was, as well as how terrifying this huge snake was. But no matter how terrifying it was, Qin Zhao would destroy it. The real monster wasn't the snakes, but Chen Zhao, who was crazily slaughtering. However, compared to Qin Zhao's slaughter, the number of snakes was a bit too much. Moreover, more snakes kept coming out of the bloody eye in the sky. Qin Zhao wasn't in a hurry. If they were all snakes, it would be easy for him. No matter how many ants there were, they were still ants. In movies, ants that could devour humans did exist in tropical rainforests, but they were unnatural ant colonies. Normal ants couldn't devour humans. Chen Zhao would rather face a group of ants. But there were really too many ants. Chen Zhao wanted to kill them one by one, but his killing speed couldn't keep up with the snake's increasing speed. More importantly, Qin Zhao was a bit greedy. He still wanted to collect the snake's hearts. Li Pan also realized that Chen Zhao's killing speed couldn't keep up with the snake's appearance. She started to worry. There were so many snakes. Chen Zhao might not be able to kill that many even if he died of exhaustion. Moreover, his killing speed seemed to have slowed down. Was he tired already? But he hadn't even killed 1% of the snakes. It seemed that it was too much for him to do it alone. Chen Zhao finally stopped. He put away the last snake heart and turned to look at the serpent that was still charging at him. The snakes were already huge, and there were tens of thousands of them. From below, they looked like dark clouds that covered the sky. Chen Zhao took a deep breath and slowly raised his palms. He was activating the power of the world. Li Pan's pupils constricted. She couldn't help but rub her eyes. She wasn't sure if she was seeing things. There was a pair of incomparably huge hands scooping up from below. Almost all the giant snakes were enveloped by the pair of giant palms. All the giant snakes gave up on attacking and turned to flee upwards. However, their speed of escape was clearly not fast enough. The giant palm began to close, and the number of snakes that could escape the range of the giant palm was pitiful. Rumble, accompanied by a thunderous roar, the giant palm finally closed completely. What flowed out from the cracks of the giant palm was a large amount of flesh and blood. Li Pan's face was drained of blood as he stared at Qin Zhao in shock. She felt her scalp go numb. How could he attack such a monster? Before coming here, he was still planning how to fight back. At this moment, she could only rejoice like never before. At the same time, she also understood why Qin Zhao was confident that he could protect his daughter through the third night alone. What kind of magic is that? Does China have such terrifying magic? With Li Pan's realm, it was clear that she couldn't understand what Sure was. Originally, Li Pan thought that this would be a bitter battle, but Qin Zhao ended the battle easily. But why hasn't he come down yet? What is he looking at? Qin Zhao looked up at the sky and the huge blood-red eye in the sky. Suddenly, Qin Zhao raised his arm and released a beam of holy light at the eye. However, the holy light cannon penetrated the blood-red eye and nothing happened. It wasn't a creature's eye. It was probably created by some kind of magic or some kind of entrance. It was like a magic formation, but not in the normal form. Just when Li Pan thought that everything was over, hands suddenly reached out from the blood-red eye. There were so many of them that it made one's hair stand on end. They were so densely packed that it made one's scalp go numb. It looked like the surface of the eye was covered in fur. This strange scene sent chills down one's spine. Just then, all the palms spread out from the center like a wave. In the center of the countless palms, a woman's figure slowly appeared. Qin Zhao frowned. It wasn't because of the woman's strength, but because this strange entrance made him uncomfortable. As the woman descended, the palms started leaving the blood-red eye and forming a pair of incomparably huge wings on her back. The wings extended for at least 20 to 30 kilometers. Li Pan couldn't stand still. Her legs were weak. The terrifying scene and the terrifying woman made her scalp go numb. The woman stopped when she was more than 100 meters above the ground. She looked down at Qin Zhao. At the same time, more monsters appeared from the blood-red eye in the sky. They also had wings and were similarly huge. They looked like crocodiles, but they were even fiercer and scarier. However, Qin Zhao was still most concerned about the woman. She gave off an ominous aura. Without any warning, the attack came. The woman pointed at Qin Zhao. The wings formed from countless palms were formed into a huge fist and punched at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao also raised his right arm and punched with the power of the world. Rumble, there was an earth-shattering sound, accompanied by a huge impact. Li Pan saw the ground in front of her rise continuously. Soon it would reach her. Just then, a black barrier blocked the impact. Li Pan looked at the black barrier in surprise. Soon, she realized that the black barrier had spread out from under Qin Zhao's feet. Qin Zhao's punch dissipated and the woman's huge fist was also shattered. However, new wings quickly formed on the woman's back. Qin Zhao had originally thought that the wings formed from the arms were made of flesh and blood. Now it seemed that the wings weren't real either. Instead, they were made from magic. Just then, the wings on the woman's back suddenly flashed with countless light spots. The colors of the electricity were very bright and beautiful, as if the bright stars were embellishing the wings. But very quickly, Qin Zhao and Li Pan realized what those dots of light were. They were magic. Many, many spells. Tens of thousands were indescribable. There were hundreds of thousands, millions of spells. Even Qin Zhao was shocked. It was an unprecedented scene. The woman could release millions of spells at the same time. What did that mean? Even if each spell was of the lowest level, it was still millions of spiritualists releasing spells at the same time. Moreover, Qin Zhao could feel that many of the spells in the chaotic magic waves were extremely powerful. Chapter 23:18. Both Li Pan and Qin Zhao watched as the countless spells fell like rain. The overwhelming number of spells caused Li Pan to despair. Chen Zhao lifted his finger and a dark curtain rose. It blocked most of the spells. The spells landed on the curtain of darkness, creating ripples. Soon, the curtain of darkness was riddled with holes. Spells passed through the dark curtain and shot toward Chen Zhao. It's over. Li Pan's mind went blank. Chen Zhao's curtain of darkness didn't even block a third of it. Then he looked at the densely packed spells. That was not a situation the humans could face. Devour. The mouth of gluttony on Chen Zhao's right arm opened. He hadn't used the mouth of gluttony's devour ability in a long time. This time, Chen Zhao couldn't do anything. The woman had too many skills. However, as soon as Chen Zhao activated the mouth of gluttony, his entire right arm detached from his shoulder. It fell to the ground and turned into a huge beast. The beast looked exactly the same as Beelzebub, Zophie's original form. It was just that it was not as huge as Beelzebub, Zophie. Li Pan was dumbfounded. What the hell was this? The glutton formed from Chen Zhao's arm opened its bloody mouth. All of the magic was instantly sucked in by a powerful suction force. Chen Zhao was confused. His right arm had left his shoulder and turned into the gluttonous beast at the same time. But he was still connected to the glutton behemoth. His every thought could be transmitted to the gluttony behemoth. After devouring countless spells, all the energy was gathered by the glutton behemoth's mouth and compressed into a colorful energy ball. Bang! All the energy in the energy ball burst out in an instant. The energy ball was too fast, and the woman didn't have time to dodge. Half of her body was directly penetrated by the energy ball, leaving only the lower half of her body. Meanwhile, the energy ball continued to shoot towards the sky like a hot knife through butter. He flew 10,000 meters into the sky before exploding. All the haze and dark clouds were swept away in an instant. The light released by the energy ball was like a supernova explosion. The scene was incomparable and indescribable. The entire sky became incomparably pure. All the monsters that came out of the blood-red eyes were instantly wiped out. The beast of gluttony turned back into Chen Zhao's arm. The woman in the sky finally revealed a look of surprise. At this moment, she only had half of her body left, but there was no sign of pain on her face. You are very powerful. For thousands of years, I have never met a human as powerful as you. The woman finally spoke. I should feel honored to be praised by the first witch, Lilith. Even the few gods I've met aren't as powerful as you. Lilith. Li Pan was also shocked. She did not know Lilith's true identity. However, there was basically no one in the spirit world who didn't know of him. This woman is Lilith? The legendary Lilith? Who is that girl to you? Lilith pointed at little Jerlin in Li Pan's arms. My daughter. Looks like our battle is unavoidable, Lilith said. Are you sure you want to give up your thousands of years of life just to be killed by me? It's indeed difficult for me to defeat you alone, Lilith said. Li Pan could not help but exclaim. Even the first, which admitted that she was no match for this man? Just what realm had this man's strength reached? However, Chen Zhao could tell what Lilith was implying. Just then, the blood-red eyes in the sky gathered again. At the same time, another figure appeared. It was the figure of a woman. The same appearance, the same powerful magic. It was also inauspicious and unsettling. 1, 2, 3, for, in the end, 6 came out. Including the first Lilith, there were 7 in total. Every one of them was immeasurably powerful and gave off a terrifying aura. Although their auras were equally powerful, they were different. All of them were existences that Chen Zhao could not ignore. Confusion appeared on Chen Zhao's face. The 7 Liliths looked exactly the same and were all extremely powerful. Was this her clone spell? Or was it some kind of puppet spell where she changed their appearances and made them all look the same? Suddenly, a sword-wielding Lilith attacked. The sword-wielding Lilith's attack was extremely fierce. She raised her sword above her head, and when it fell down, it turned into a sky-piercing sword aura. Chen Zhao stepped forward and faced the aura, using his body to take it head-on. Rumble! In an instant, the surrounding buildings were all destroyed. The 7 Lilises all raised their eyebrows. They did not expect Chen Zhao to be able to use his body to take such an attack head-on. However, they did not hesitate because of this. One of them, Lilith, pointed her wand at Chen Zhao. Void bind. Chen Zhao immediately felt something invisible binding him. The binding force was quite strong, but it could only bind him for 10 seconds at most. Just as Chen Zhao was about to break free, a huge force came from behind. A Lilith appeared behind Chen Zhao and kicked him away. Chen Zhao landed heavily on the ground. He had to admit that the kick had indeed hurt him. The 3 Lilises had attacked. They each had a different magic system. However, they were all indescribably powerful. All of them were powerful beings that Chen Zhao could not ignore. Moreover, they were not clones. They were all complete individuals. Giving up actually requires courage, the first Lilith said. When you face an irresistible power, you should learn to give up. Cowardice is cowardice. I will never find excuses for it. Chen Zhao said indifferently. Your persistence will not bring you victory. Your daughter will not be hurt. She will become extremely powerful and have an almost eternal life. You should be happy and proud of this, the Lilith said. Change into your cheap appearances first. Chen Zhao thought of what the 23rd Blood Mary had said. Then he looked at the 7 Lilises that had appeared at the same time. It suddenly occurred to him that she, or their purpose, they were assimilating every awakened of nirvana. They would become shells with unified thoughts and power. Therefore, if his daughter fell into their hands, her thoughts would be completely erased. It was no different from death. If you know what your daughter has lost because of your stubbornness, you will regret it. Chen Zhao smiled and raised his middle finger. Chapter 2319. The moment Chen Zhao raised his middle finger, Lilith of the strengthening faculty moved. Her figure was like a bolt of lightning, so fast that no one could catch her figure. But the moment she stopped, Chen Zhao's hand grabbed her neck. All the Lilith and Li Pan widened their eyes and stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Chen Zhao's arm shone with a dark light. Dark assimilation. No one has ever been able to challenge what I'm best at. As the strengthening Lilith struggled madly, Chen Zhao used smile and cruelty to increase his strength bit by bit. Great power? Eternal life? That's all. Stop! All the Lilith shouted at Chen Zhao with angry voices and incredulous gazes. No, you can't do this. No, I can. Chen Zhao grabbed the strengthening Lilith's head with his other hand and twisted it hard. The head was still in Chen Zhao's hand, but her body had already fallen to the ground powerlessly. You deserve to die. A Lilith, whose entire body was emitting black light, exuded endless darkness. Her arms were raised high, and behind her, a demon Dharma idol filled with darkness appeared. However, a substance darker than her surged towards her. It instantly swallowed her and her Dharma of evil. Everyone could still see her struggling in the waves of darkness. Chen Zhao widened his eyes. He still had a smile on his face, but his eyes were filled with ferocity. I should teach you a lesson. When one of you can't beat me, it means that all of you can't beat me. Numbers won't bring you victory. It will only make you die more thoroughly. In the end, the Dark Lilith completely sank in the waves of darkness. This sent a chill down the spines of all the other Lilith. An unprecedented chill. You might not know, but I've not only defeated many evil and darkness in the past, but I've also swallowed them and turned them into my food. Chen Zhao licked his lips. You want to swallow us? Lilith looked at Chen Zhao coldly. Do you really think you can beat me? Us? Why not? Suddenly, the remaining 5 Lilith attacked Chen Zhao at the same time. They were all using strengthening attacks, pure physical attacks. Boom, boom, boom. Qin Zhao was almost stunned by their attacks. Because of the passive situation, Chen Zhao could only try to distance himself. 5 terrifying, enhancing type spirit controllers. Moreover, all 5 Lilises were as powerful as Qin Zhao in his normal state. What do you think? Aren't you surprised? The attack of the 5 Lilises just now was just a warm-up. Qin Zhao frowned at the 5 Lilises. Their powers are interconnected? No, they were not interconnected. If each of them had the power of the enhancement element just now, when he used the dark magma to swallow Dark Lilith, she could have used her strengthening physique to escape, instead of struggling in the dark magma and being swallowed by it. Qin Zhao's eyes widened in realization. So that's how it is. When I kill one Lilith, the other Lilith will also receive the magic of the dead Lilith. You realized it too late. From the moment you killed the first one, you already had no chance of winning. What about the second one? Chen Zhao's smile became even crueler. The second Lilith that I devoured doesn't seem to have her power returned to you. The expressions of the 5 Lilises changed involuntarily. Seems like I guessed correctly. You're all connected. One's death will cause power to appear in the others, but your power can appear out of nowhere. Chen Zhao glanced at the 5 Lilises. At the same time, he used his clone technique. 32 Qin Zhao appeared at the same time, each with the same power as Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao used 10,000 combinations again. The 32 Qin Zhao merged into one. 32 times increase. Next, surging spiritual qi surged toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's body turned from black to gold. Giant spirit transformation. 10 times increase. With each increase, Qin Zhao's aura became even more terrifying. Hurry! Kill him! All the Lilises attacked in an instant. But the next moment, the spells all pierced through Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's body turned into a stream of energy. This time, Qin Zhao chose to attack the sword-wielding Lilith. Lilith swung her sword at Qin Zhao, but her blade and sword aura all missed. Qin Zhao instantly appeared before Lilith. Qin Zhao reached out and pressed on Lilith's chest. Her chest caved in. With a cry, Lilith spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Zhao grabbed Lilith's sword-wielding hand and twisted it. Lilith screamed again, as if he was using a sword himself. Qin Zhao grabbed Lilith's hand and slashed at herself. Whoosh! One of Lilith's arms was cut off by her own sword. Qin Zhao slashed again, and Lilith's other arm was also cut off. Qin Zhao casually tossed the sword in his hand. The blade pierced through Lilith's chest and pinned her to the ground. Save me! Lilith screamed in pain. The other 4 Lilises attacked Qin Zhao again, but the spells couldn't do any actual damage to Qin Zhao. Show yourself! The Lilith who'd used incorporeal spells earlier shouted. Qin Zhao suddenly turned from an energy body to a solid one. Huh. Qin Zhao didn't expect his energy body to turn back into a solid one. But before he could figure it out, the other 4 Lilises' attacks shot at him again. Boom, boom, boom. The surrounding terrain had completely changed under the terrifying attacks. The original square was now a wasteland. There wasn't a single complete building on the ground in the entire street. If Li Pan and Zhilin didn't have Qin Zhao's protection, they would have been vaporized in the first round of attacks. The intensity of the attacks was no less than the bombardment of an army equipped with the most advanced weapons. Qin Zhao was also very uncomfortable under such attacks. If he allowed them to continue attacking him, even he might not be able to withstand it. Not only did they receive the spells of their fallen comrades, but they also received their power and magic. This was also why Qin Zhao didn't kill Lilith earlier. Devour. Qin Zhao's right arm turned into a glutton beast again, crazily devouring the incoming spells. This damn thing will devour our spells, one of the Lilises yelled. We can't use directional spells. Change to area of effect spells. Both sides were in a stalemate. Chapter 23:20. Just then, Chen Zhao realized that his body was being energized. Lilith's spell had forcibly turned Chen Zhao from an energy body to a solid one. However, Lilith's spell didn't last long on Chen Zhao. When Chen Zhao's body was completely energized, he turned into a beam of light. What? Oh no, my spell lost its effect. Hurry up and make him solid again. This time, Chen Zhao wouldn't give Lilith a chance. Chen Zhao attacked the ethereal Lilith first. However, the moment Chen Zhao got close to Lilith, a barrier separated Chen Zhao from the ethereal Lilith. It was a wholly defensive barrier. Wholly defensive spells had always been the strongest in all magic systems. In particular, there were a few wholly defensive spells that were known to be indestructible barriers. Of course, there weren't any indestructible barriers in this world. In the past, there were only such legends because no one had reached the upper limit. The barrier in front of Chen Zhao was the immortal barrier. It was said to be a holy spell that could block all evil. However, Chen Zhao didn't hesitate at all. He crashed into the barrier head-on. There was no violence. Billions of tons of force instantly spread on the barrier. The immortal barrier shattered like a mirror. Behind the immortal barrier, Lilith and Light Lilith spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Light Lilith was hurt because the immortal barrier she'd created with all her magic was shattered by Chen Zhao's brute force. Lilith was hurt because she'd been hit by the shockwave of the immortal barrier shattering. When the ethereal Lilith saw that Chen Zhao had turned into a stream of light and appeared before her, she understood that it was all too late. The only thing Lilith could do was open her arms. With a relieved smile, she seemed to have given up struggling. However, Chen Zhao didn't plan to kill her. At least, he didn't plan to kill her directly. Chen Zhao grabbed Lilith's face. Dark lava surged out of his palm and seeped into her mouth, nose, and ears. Only then did Lilith react, but it was too late. The dark lava seeped into Lilith's body and took over everything. At the same time, it erased all of Lilith's self-awareness. Because of the activation of the soul key, Chen Zhao had the ability to devour soul fragments. When Chen Zhao wiped away Lilith's consciousness in the void, her soul also disintegrated. The fragments of her soul were naturally devoured by Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao obtained the truth about Lilith from her soul. The expressions of the other three Liliths changed drastically. Dark Lilith was completely devoured by the dark magma. The swordsman Lilith was nailed to the ground with her arms cut off. Lilith was completely controlled by Chen Zhao. Perhaps the strengthening type Lilith was the best choice. Although she was instantly killed by Chen Zhao, her power returned to her sisters. The remaining three Liliths were Liliths who could release endless magic through countless palms. She was the first Lilith to appear. Although she had been on the battlefield the longest, she only had half of her body left. The other two were Holy Light Lilith and Elemental Lilith. Chen Zhao glanced at the remaining three Lilith. Finally, his gaze landed on Holy Light Lilith. She was the real Lilith, the original body. More accurately, she was the original Lilith. The other Liliths also had Lilith's consciousness and thoughts, but they weren't the original Lilith. Before becoming a part of Lilith, the other Lilith had once been an individual with their own thoughts and consciousness. All of them had one thing in common. They had once awakened the nirvanic power. They were all nirvanic witches. They had all awakened on the second night, but they had all failed. On the brink of death, they accepted Lilith's conditions. They had to become a part of Lilith and exist as Lilith. The 7 Liliths were the former 7 nirvanic witches. They had existed in different eras. The so-called nirvanic witches had originally come from the church. Nirvanic witches represented abnormality and went against common sense. Nirvanic witch Lilith, the first witch. Who would have thought that she came from the church? She had once been a devout nun, but after she awakened, she had been used by the church of that era. Shamanism and Druidry had lost their foundation because of her attack. Shamanism, in particular, had almost been destroyed by her. But it was also during that process that she had broken away from the church's control. She had started the Dark Ages in Europe. She had made people understand what a demon was for the first time. Except for the original Lilith, the other Liliths could only be regarded as Nirvanic witches or Lilith's messengers. They were connected to each other through the Nirvanic power, and their souls were completely entangled, becoming a symbiotic body. This was the truth of Nirvanic witches. There was only one spell, and that was to make everyone else a part of the Nirvanic witches. Ordinary people or ordinary spiritualists could do the same. But because they didn't have magic power or had different magic attributes, they couldn't have the same power as Lilith and the symbiotic bodies. This was a great fortune in misfortune. After all, if everyone could become a part of Lilith and have the same power as Lilith, the world would have been overturned by Lilith long ago. The awakening of the Nirvanic witches was very rare. Since ancient times, apart from little Jerlin, there had only been 9 people who had awakened. 2 of them were successful, so they didn't need to accept Lilith's conditions. Of course, it could also be because the 2 Nirvanic witches had awakened on the first night, so their talent wasn't as good as the Nirvanic witches who had awakened on the second night. Little Jerlin was the only Nirvanic witch who had awakened on the 3rd night. At the same time, because of little Jerlin's extraordinary talent, Lilith had become Jerlin's calamity on the night of her awakening. Qin Zhao also knew Lilith's secret of being almost immortal. She had once signed a contract with a demon lord. The content of the contract was to send the demon army to the modern world, and the condition was to split the demon lord's lifespan and hers equally. In other words, demon lord Lilith's own lifespan would be split equally between the 2. This was the secret of her immortality. A demon lord's lifespan was measured in units of tens of thousands. However, Lilith was a very ambitious person. She wasn't satisfied with the current situation. She even found a new world and gained complete control over it. In the past 2,000 years, she had been experimenting in that new world and created the Nirvanic army. They were the countless monsters that Qin Zhao had fought before. Chapter 23-21. The 3 Lilith glanced at each other. They could feel it too. If they continued fighting like this, Qin Zhao would kill them one by one sooner or later. If one of them died, the power would return to the other sisters. Maybe it wouldn't be so difficult for them. Even if only one sister was left in the end, she would be the strongest. But Qin Zhao didn't give them this chance at all. Let's go! Holy Light Lilith shouted. The other 2 Lilith rose into the air too. But Qin Zhao wouldn't give them the chance to escape. He immediately turned into a stream of light and chased after the 3 Lilith. The first one Qin Zhao caught up to was the first Lilith. Her wings, made of countless palms, didn't give her extreme speed. Instead, they became her burden. Seeing that Qin Zhao had caught up to her, Lilith stopped running. She turned around and opened her huge wings. Countless spells shot toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao still had the momentum of wind and lightning in the overwhelming magic attacks. He charged before Lilith, not caring about the spells falling on him at all. Because of the distance, most of the spells couldn't focus on Qin Zhao at all. Without hesitation, Qin Zhao poured the dark lava into Lilith's mouth, nose, and ears. Corroded by the dark lava, Lilith fell from the sky. Ignoring Lilith, Qin Zhao chased up into the sky again. Only the original Holy Light Lilith and Elemental Lilith were left. Qin Zhao's speed was much faster than the 2 Lilith. Just then, Elemental Lilith stopped too. She looked at Holy Light Lilith, not far away. Elemental Lilith opened her arms. Instantly, the entire sky above Wasteland Market turned crimson. In an instant, streaks of meteors fell from the sky. Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. Was she going to plow the already ruined Wasteland Market again? Meteor fall. This was the extreme of elemental fire magic. The terrifying elements turned into meteors that fell from the sky. Qin Zhao looked at Elemental Lilith, and then at Li Pan and Jerlin below. If he continued chasing, they might be in danger. Although he didn't want to, he still gave up on killing the remaining 2 Liliths in the end. If he didn't have any worries, he would definitely kill them all. If he let Lilith escape this time, an enemy of her level would definitely think of ways to increase his strength and target him at the same time. At their level, it might not be easy for them to break through their current realm. But if it was targeted, it wouldn't be too difficult. If they met again, Qin Zhao might not be so relaxed. Of course, these worries were for the future. Qin Zhao was most concerned about Zhilin. He landed on the ground and helped little Zhilin and Lapon block the apocalyptic magic. Starfall's goal was to cover as much area as possible. It didn't pose much of a threat to a single target. At least for people of their level, it was the same feeling as enjoying the waves on the beach on a sunny day. But to a minor spiritualist like Li Pan, this was no different from an apocalyptic disaster. Qin Zhao looked back at the sky. Elemental Lilith and Holy Light Lilith had already rushed into the Blood Eye. Then, the bloody eye slowly closed. In the end, it completely disappeared. But the wasteland market was completely covered in flames. Just then, little Zhilin's eyelids twitched, and she slowly opened her eyes. "Papa!" Zhilin looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. "Papa, where is this? Wow, there's so much fire." Zhilin was born bold. She wasn't afraid at all. Seeing the flames around her, her first reaction wasn't fear. Instead, it was surprise. Zhilin wasn't afraid, but Lapon was scared half to death. The man in front of him was simply a monster in human skin. "Papa, who is she? Are you looking for a mistress?" Qin Zhao slapped Zhilin's head angrily. "Stop talking nonsense." Then, Qin Zhao left the wasteland market with little Zhilin and Lapon. The air outside was still more comfortable. Even Qin Zhao didn't like breathing the burning air in the wasteland market. When the car drove into the center of Istanbul, Qin Zhao stopped and said to Lapon, "Okay, you can go now." Lapon didn't say anything. She opened the car door and got out obediently. "Wait." Qin Zhao stopped Li Pan. Lapon almost peed her pants. She looked at Qin Zhao with a sad face. "I won't tell anyone what I saw today. Here's yours." Qin Zhao handed Lapon a check. Lapon almost thought that Qin Zhao was going to kill her. Lapon put the check away. Before she could thank him, Qin Zhao had already left with little Zhilin. When Qin Zhao returned to the hotel room and was about to tell Feilai that he was safe, he realized that there were people in the room. He opened the door and saw Baifla, Zhang Tianyi, and 23rd Blood Mary in the room. "Why are you here?" Qin Zhao asked in surprise. "Huh, is it over? You won." Zhang Tianyi asked. "Of course." "How's Lilith? How strong is she?" "Very strong. Unbelievably strong," Qin Zhao said. "Tell us in detail." For cultivators at their level, it was very important to improve themselves through experience and communication. If they needed each other's help, they could even share the secret manuals and techniques of their respective sections. Qin Zhao started to slowly explain his battle with Lilith. Of course, he left out some details. However, Qin Zhao explained Lilith's situation in great detail. For example, he predicted Lilith's strength level. Everyone's brows were sometimes furrowed and sometimes relaxed. Sometimes they were deep in thought, and sometimes they nodded. In the end, Zhang Tianyi concluded Lilith alone should be about as strong as Baifla. "No, I'm stronger than any of them," Baifla said coolly. "I'm confident that I can take on one." "I can probably take on 2, 23rd Blood Mary said. "I can take on 7, but I can't do it as easily as Qin Zhao," Zhang Tianyi said. "If it were me, I might have to fight them for 3 to 5 days. All of them had their own small world, so they had almost endless magic power. Thus, it was normal for them to fight for 3 to 5 days. Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao has some unorthodox skills, but his battle techniques are still focused on his strength and speed. They're simple and singular, but it's precisely because of this that 7 Lilith are the hardest to deal with. Now that two Liliths have escaped, if they fight again, how do you think Lilith will try to defeat Qin Zhao? Chapter 23-22. Everyone sunk into deep thought. Just then, Zhang Tianyi said, "There are two ways to defeat Qin Zhao. One is to defeat him with greater power, and the other is to defeat him by restraining him." As he spoke, Zhang Tianyi looked at the crowd again. Which of these two ideas do you think is more likely? The 23rd Blood Mary said, "Theoretically speaking, my little world can actually suppress Qin Zhao, but it's not that simple. Even if there's a similar way to suppress Qin Zhao, it's still very difficult to do it. Your small world can't restrain him completely." Zhang Tianyi shook his head. To restrain Qin Zhao, you need to make him lose his ability to move, not just restrain him. Everyone was discussing how to restrain him, but Qin Zhao didn't take it to heart. This was a normal conversation. No one had any bad intentions. What about power that surpasses Qin Zhao? Bifla looked at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao shook his head. It's probably more difficult than making me lose my ability to move. At least, I've met some spiritualists who can make me temporarily lose my ability to move. But it's probably very difficult to surpass my current power, unless it's something several levels higher than me. Didn't Qin Zhao say that he controlled one of Lilith's bodies and learned from her soul fragments that Lilith controlled a small world and conducted crazy experiments in that small world? We don't know anything about that small world, so it's hard to be sure that there aren't any powerful creatures in that world. For example, dragons. Perhaps ordinary dragons can't threaten Qin Zhao, and even dragons at the level of dragon fathers can't compete with Qin Zhao. But what about dragons at the level of dragon kings? If Lilith modifies them again, will they have a chance to surpass Qin Zhao? There's indeed such a possibility, but you've overlooked one point. Even if a dragon of such a level really exists in that small world, does Lilith really have the ability to defeat or even kill a dragon of the Dragon King level? Of course, the possibility was one thing. Theoretically, it was indeed possible. They weren't discussing how to surpass Qin Zhao now. Instead, they were discussing the various possibilities. It wasn't really possible. It was like a group of rich people discussing how to defeat a certain rich person. There were actually many possibilities to defeat a certain rich person, but in reality, it was much more complicated. Moreover, this kind of discussion would allow Qin Zhao to realize more possibilities. This made him even more cautious. Therefore, this kind of discussion is not a bad thing. Everyone suggested various possibilities. Just then, Qin Zhao felt a familiar feeling. "Old John, I have something to do," Qin Zhao said, standing up. "Help me take care of my daughter. I need to go out for a while." Everyone looked at Qin Zhao in surprise. Qin Zhao looked very anxious. No one knew what could make Qin Zhao so anxious. Even his daughter was left to be taken care of by everyone. All right. No one intended to pursue the matter. Since Qin Zhao wasn't going to say it, it was probably his privacy. Qin Zhao left the hotel in a hurry. The next moment, he disappeared on the spot. Summon! The call from hell. But this time, Qin Zhao wasn't summoned away like before. Qin Zhao visited hell again. It was the familiar obsidian castle. However, Beelzebub Zophi was not there to welcome him. Qin Zhao had been to Obsidian Castle many times, so he knew the place quite well. He strolled around the Obsidian Castle. Just then, Qin Zhao felt a familiar and powerful aura. The owner of the aura also sensed Qin Zhao. A while later, Beelzebub Zophi appeared before Qin Zhao with his army. "Human? How come it's you?" Qin Zhao looked at Beelzebub, Zophi, and the army behind him. He almost thought that Zophi was going to fight him. "Why not me? Did you summon me? Or was it not you who summoned me?" "I thought the summon failed," Beelzebub Zophi said. "Or rather, you've reached a level where even I can't summon you anymore." Beelzebub Zophi said. Qin Zhao was stunned. He immediately realized this possibility. In the past, Both the handsome guy and Beelzebub Zophie had summoned him. He didn't even have time to react before being summoned to hell. However, the summoning this time seemed a little different. He wasn't summoned to hell immediately. Moreover, he'd come to hell on his own accord. Unknowingly, he was already as powerful as Beelzebub Zophie. When Beelzebub Zophie summoned Qin Zhao didn't appear immediately. That was why Zophie thought that the summon had failed. Fortunately, Beelzebub Zophie sensed Qin Zhao's aura and rushed over. "It seems that we're on the same level now," Qin Zhao said, nodding. "Unbelievable. Human lifespans aren't worth mentioning in my eyes, but you humans grow so fast that it's terrifying." Qin Zhao chuckled. He couldn't treat it as normal. What surprised Beelzebub Zophie the most was his investment. They were allies. At first, he'd only treated Qin Zhao as his son's protector. Beelzebub Zophie and Oris had treated Qin Zhao as their son's protector, not because he was powerful. It was because he could enter hell and the human world freely. This was something that no creature in the two worlds could do. That was why Beelzebub Zophie had invested quite a lot in Qin Zhao. Of course, he'd invested more in Qin Zhao's relationship. He didn't expect that Qin Zhao was already on the same level as him. "Oh, why did you summon me?" "I'm about to fight another lord. How's the preparation for the weapon I asked you to make for me?" "Oh, I've prepared it a long time ago." Qin Zhao slapped his head and took out a huge hammer. The hammer was 20 meters in diameter, and there was a chain hanging from it. This was the weapon he'd prepared for Beelzebub Zophie. It was made by Ruan Faxben. Of course, the blueprint and most of the materials were provided by Beelzebub Zophie. The weapon was too huge for a regular person, but it was too small for Beelzebub Zophie's body. Beelzebub Zophie's body was about the size of Obsidian Castle. In Beelzebub Zophie's eyes, the hammer was like a glass orb. However, Beelzebub Zophie stared at the hammer before him in a daze. "I can feel the power contained in it." "The weapon seal is also made according to the magic veins you provided. You know how to operate it without me saying much." Chapter 23:23. Beelzebub Zophie lifted the hammer and tried to use the seal. The hammer started shrinking, but not by too much. It was originally 20 meters in diameter, but after using the curse, it shrunk to 10 meters in diameter. Others couldn't use this weapon, especially demons. This was especially true for demons because there were many angelic crystals hidden in the chain balls. All of them were perfect crystals too. Even a great lord-ranked demon would be injured by this attack. This was also Beelzebub Zophie's ultimate weapon. Demons couldn't make this weapon. That was why Beelzebub Zophie had asked Qin Zhao to make it for him. Beelzebub Zophie was very satisfied with this weapon. This weapon doesn't have a name yet. "It's been around since the beginning," Beelzebub Zophie said. "It's called Kingslayer." Qin Zhao was surprised. Although the weapon was embedded with large amounts of angelic crystals, it didn't have enough energy. Although this weapon was embedded with many angelic crystals, it was still made by Ruan Faceeye. With Qin Zhao's current knowledge, he could even destroy this weapon. Even if angelic crystals countered demons, could it really kill a demon king? "It's not complete," Beelzebub Zophie said. Qin Zhao was stunned for a moment, but he quickly realized what Beelzebub Zophie meant. Alchemists in the human world probably couldn't make a weapon that could kill a demon king. Even if they had all the materials and blueprints, it was still impossible. It was like a group of ants. If you gave them the blueprints for a cannon, could they really make a cannon? It was clearly impossible. Beelzebub Zophie's eyes lit up. "When do you plan to fight the enemy lord?" Qin Zhao asked. Beelzebub Zophie licked his lips. "How about now? If you help me, I'll give you half of the spoils." "Me?" Qin Zhao fell into deep thought. His bellicose nature seemed to be responding to him. Beelzebub Zophie didn't rush Qin Zhao. Instead, he waited quietly for Qin Zhao's reply. That demon king won't attack you when he sees you attacking his subordinates, right? Chen Zhao asked. Do you think I'll fight a demon king recklessly? Beelzebub Zophi said confidently. It's very dangerous to steal a demon king's throne, but I'm not completely unprepared. Do you have any way to restrain the demon king? Of course, I can't stop a demon king. Only a demon king can, Beelzebub Zophi said. Don't tell me you can make use of the other demon kings. Using the word use was a very dangerous thing to do with the demon king. Chen Zhao felt that it would be even more dangerous if Beelzebub Zophi did that. No, I'm not using the second demon king to restrain him. I'm relying on His Majesty's protection. Your Majesty? King of Gluttony? Yes. Is your bloodline close to the King of Gluttony? His Majesty and I are within 10 generations of each other, so we can be considered close relatives. However, my protection isn't because of my bloodline. It's because my father was once favored by His Majesty. My father made contributions for His Majesty. So His Majesty promised that as long as he and his children don't attack demons above their level, they won't attack us. My father didn't understand at the time, but now it seems that His Majesty has seen the future. All of Chen Zhao's knowledge of the King of Gluttony came from Belial. Only a demon king of the same level could casually comment on another demon king. Belial thought of Beelzebub as a gourmet who would do anything for food. Chen Zhao had reservations about this. However, Beelzebub was a demon king who took promises very seriously. He'd created a race for food. After that, he didn't burn the bridge after crossing it. Instead, he fulfilled his promise. To Chen Zhao, this was unbelievable. According to human thinking, burning the bridge after crossing it was what demons should do. That's why you dare to attack that demon king's subordinates? Yes. If that demon king dares to attack me, His Majesty definitely won't just stand by. I'm willing to help you, but you said you'd give me half of the spoils. Demon wealth doesn't seem to be of much use to me. Every lord's wealth is immeasurable. Are you sure it's useless to you? Chen Zhao touched his nose. Of course, he didn't think so. He was considering the gains and losses, as well as the risks involved. Just then, Beelzebub Zophi said, I only want all the territory and people. You can take anything else that you can. Chen Zhao suddenly looked at Chen Zhao. This was almost the entire wealth of a great lord. Are you serious? Of course. Are we leaving now? Wait for what? Iris, Beelzebub Zophi said. Just then, the sky above Obsidian Castle was suddenly covered by darkness. Chen Zhao raised his head and saw Iris' terrifying body. As the child of Iris and Beelzebub Zophi, Abydos was less than 1/10,000th of Iris' size. When Iris spread her wings, she was even larger than Obsidian Castle. At the same time, almost all the demons in Obsidian Castle were intimidated by her peerless dragon might. What level is Iris? She's the same as me and similar to you. We're both lords. Of course, because dragons and demons don't have the same origin. Dragons have their own titles. She's a dragon king now. Come up, human. I'll allow you to stand on my back, Iris said. Beelzebub, Zophi, and Chen Zhao both flew onto Iris's back. Iris flapped her wings and flew into the distance with fiery clouds covering the sky. Iris flew very fast. At least, it was much faster than any plane Chen Zhao knew. But they still flew for 2 hours. Chen Zhao finally saw buildings on the ground. However, Iris spat out a mouthful of dragon breath from high up in the sky. In an instant, the buildings were erased. Was this the war between demons? Chen Zhao couldn't help but exclaim. The demons in the demon town below didn't even have time to react before they were completely wiped out. In the eyes of high-level demons, they were just ants. But this was the rule of demons. For humans, this was too cruel. But for demons, this was the norm. Chen Zhao wouldn't tell them that this was too cruel. saying that at a time like this would only make him seem stupid. But he could only attack like this once. An even larger building complex appeared before them. That should be the main city. Iris and Beelzebub, Sophie, didn't plan to kill everyone here. They knew that population could bring them huge benefits. Chapter 23-24. However, when Iris's huge body appeared in the sky above the city, it still brought fear. The sky-covering wings whistled, filling the air with dust and heat waves as they surged into the city. At this moment, the city walls seemed meaningless. At this moment, 3 huge heads extended out from the main city below. They were 3 huge and strange dragon heads. The 3 dragon heads charged towards Eris, who was in the sky, without any explanation. Iris spat out a fiery, red dragon's breath. The middle dragon head below also spat out a black dragon's breath. The 2 dragon breaths were equally matched and exploded in the sky. Qin Zhao looked at the 3 strange dragons. The 3 dragon heads actually had 3 auras, and they were all terrifying existences at the level of a great lord. Qin Zhao thought back to the 3-headed dragon he'd killed in the past. Compared to this 3-headed dragon, it was like a big shark and a small loach. Just then, Beelzebub Sophie dove down. As he fell, his body kept growing bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger. When he landed on the ground, the entire main city trembled. Beelzebub Sophie also revealed his true form. Every step he took would cause the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Qin Zhao was still on Iris's back. Suddenly, Qin Zhao felt something in the dark clouds in the sky. Just then, the dark clouds suddenly split apart. Immediately, an incomparably huge red bird spread its wings and slashed down with its sharp claws, clawing at Iris's back. Qin Zhao suddenly soared into the sky. He instantly turned into a beam of light and shot toward the red bird. The red bird was also extremely fast. The moment it sensed the threat, it immediately turned in the opposite direction. Hiss! Qin Zhao didn't get the expected effect, but he still tore off a large piece of flesh from the red bird's neck. The red bird also had the aura of a great lord. Its body radiated a terrifying and scorching aura. Where are you from? Why don't I know you at all? The red bird stared at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao's aura was too strange. The red bird couldn't tell what Qin Zhao was. In addition, although Qin Zhao's energy form was humanoid, it was clearly not the human that the giant red bird remembered. The red bird was many times smaller than Qin Zhao, but it clearly didn't underestimate Qin Zhao. After all, being able to injure him with a single strike was not something he could underestimate. Qin Zhao wouldn't underestimate the giant red bird either. He used all his power. In the infernal realm, there are far too many existences stronger than him. After a brief stalemate, a conflict broke out without warning. Both sides had a tacit understanding and instantly launched their attacks. The huge red bird turned into a beam of red light and shot toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao also turned into a beam of white light and charged at the giant red bird. Bang! Even higher up in the battlefield below, a similarly destructive energy shockwave erupted. Qin Zhao was thrown more than 10 kilometers away and crashed into a mountain. Half of the mountain wall crumbled from the impact. The giant red bird was also knocked down from the sky. The place where he fell set off a monstrous wave of fire. Qin Zhao stood up again. Strength and speed, they were almost equally matched. Moreover, they could all be energized. At the spot where the giant red bird landed, the flames that had been set off began to shrink. The flames turned into a giant red egg, which gave birth to the giant red bird again. It was an unharmed giant red bird. Qin Zhao frowned. Was this guy an immortal bird? Qin Zhao had once killed an immortal bird when he was half a step away from the Shangqing state. He knew very well how tenacious an immortal bird's life force was. Therefore, even with his immense life force, he might not be able to defeat an immortal bird. Moreover, Even though he had immense life force, it didn't mean that he was truly immortal. The giant red bird was unharmed. It spread its wings again and screeched at Chen Zhao. At the moment, Beelzebub, Zophi, and Iris were fighting against the three-headed dragon together. Damn, the three-headed demon was prepared. He actually invited Red Eagle. I hope that human can hold on. Iris couldn't escape either. The three-headed demon's power was beyond their imagination. The two of them fought against the three-headed demon together, but they actually couldn't gain the upper hand. Red Eagle was also terrifyingly powerful. Beelzebub, Zophi, and Iris were both secretly glad. Luckily, they'd invited Chen Zhao this time. If Chen Zhao hadn't stalled Red Eagle, they would have been in danger if Red Eagle joined the battle while they were focused on fighting the three-headed demon. The three-headed demon's power was simply too terrifying. It was fighting Beelzebub, Zophi, and Iris alone and still had the upper hand. It was evident how terrifying it was. The two battlefields weren't very far apart. At least for existences at their level, it was only a step away. However, the two battlefields avoided each other tacitly. The three-headed demon and Red Eagle thought that they had the upper hand. If they rashly regrouped their opponents, there might be changes. Beelzebub, Zophi, Iris, and Chen Zhao all thought that they should help each other after they finished off their enemies. The two battlefields were fighting fiercely. They couldn't decide the winner yet. They hadn't even hurt each other yet, but they were wildly destroying everything around them. Low-level demons didn't even have the right to join the battle. They didn't even have the right to watch. After a few fierce battles, Chen Zhao was already covered in injuries. His immense life force gave him powerful recovery abilities. However, even that couldn't keep up with the speed at which he was injured. Red Eagle, on the other hand, could be reborn again and again. No matter how serious his injuries were, he could recover after rebirth. Moreover, his recovery speed was too fast. Chen Zhao couldn't even stop him before Red Eagle finished rebirth. "Looks like you're about to lose," Red Eagle said arrogantly and proudly. Defeating a powerful great lord was something even he could be proud of. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, was unprecedentedly calm. He stared at Red Eagle sternly and coldly. "You haven't won yet. It's only a matter of time." Red Eagle glanced in the direction of his ally, the three-headed demon. Similarly, the three-headed demon single-handedly suppressed the two great lords. It seemed that he didn't need Chen Zhao's help anymore. "You'll be my third great lord's food. I'm sure your flesh will be especially delicious." Magma dripped from Red Eagle's beak. He seemed to be imagining the taste of swallowing Chen Zhao into his stomach. Chen Zhao gulped. He suddenly thought of the terrifyingly powerful, great lord before him. He definitely wouldn't taste bad. Chapter 23-25. It was Chen Zhao's first time. It was his first time wanting to eat Red Eagle so strongly. It was rare that both sides had the same thought. It seemed that Red Eagle had the absolute upper hand. The two were similar. They both specialized in strength and speed. In a situation where the strength and speed of both sides were similar, recovery ability became the key factor that determined the outcome of the battle. But Chen Zhao's recovery, which he'd always been proud of, was at a disadvantage in this battle. It was precisely this factor that almost defeated Chen Zhao. Red Eagle wasn't in a hurry to attack. He was accumulating power to give Chen Zhao one last attack. The flames on his body gradually retracted, causing his wings to become as red as colored glass. Chen Zhao was also recovering from his injuries. Red Eagle grinned and laughed proudly. "Don't waste your life force. Everything you have is mine. I'll squeeze out all of your exuberant life force." It was rare that Chen Zhao didn't respond to Red Eagle's mockery. He was also making his final preparations. Red Eagle launched his final attack. His unparalleled speed turned him into a bolt of red lightning. The sky was almost split in half by the red lightning. But this time, Chen Zhao didn't choose to fight it head-on. Just like that, he hovered in place, looking at the red lightning that was speeding towards him. He raised his arm and grabbed at the air. A black trident appeared in his hand. An aura filled with death spread out. Qin Zhao did notice that the second internal alchemy left by Old Turtle on the black trident had lit up. Qin Zhao just focused all his power on his right arm. Then he threw the black trident at the red lightning. Qin Zhao threw the black trident with all his strength. It also turned into a bolt of black lightning, leaving a black path in the sky. For Red Eagle, the black trident was about the size of a needle. However, this needle carried with it an endless sense of death. It was a terror that could destroy all life. The black lightning pierced through the red lightning. The red lightning flew forward for another dozen kilometers. Then it suddenly turned downward and landed diagonally on the ground. High in the sky, Qin Zhao waved his hand. The black lightning drew an arc in the air and returned to his hand. This time, Red Eagle didn't rise from the ashes. His chest was directly pierced through, and the place that was pierced through did not heal. Instead, there was a patch of black, and the black continued to expand and spread. Red Hawk wanted to stand up again several times, but he couldn't steady himself. Qin Zhao suddenly descended from the sky and stepped heavily on the Red Eagle's head. He pressed the back onto the ground. "What is that thing?" Hong Ying roared. He wanted to know what exactly had defeated him. "It's for fishing," Qin Zhao answered calmly. "I can become your most humble servant." "No, I don't need servants. I need food." Qin Zhao was still calm. "So please die." With that, he raised the black trident, struggled intensely. He wanted to escape, wanted to resist. But the destructive power was currently corroding Red Eagle at a terrifying speed. Red Hawk's recovery ability, in front of this life-destroying power, seemed so insignificant and powerless. Even if Qin Zhao didn't do anything, Red Eagle wouldn't be able to get rid of that terrifying power. His death was inevitable, but Qin Zhao wanted to speed up the process. So, Qin Zhao's black trident pierced straight into Red Eagle's head. Red Eagle's wings and claws still shook violently a few times. Then he lost all signs of life. Just then, the black on Red Eagle's corpse quickly retreated. It seeped out of his wound and then flowed back into the black trident. Qin Zhao was surprised. He'd used the black trident to kill enemies before, but it didn't have this effect. Qin Zhao couldn't help but pick up the black trident and study it. Looking closely, he realized that the second internal core on the black trident was actually shining with a reserved light. He hadn't noticed it at all when he'd used it just now. Back then, Old Turtle had put in 12 internal cores. Qin Zhao could only activate one whenever his strength increased by a level. This was also Qin Zhao's ultimate weapon. It was specially used to deal with enemies that couldn't be killed. But no matter how powerful the black trident was, it was still a dead object. For example, that they had faced this time, his strength was undeniable. If Qin Zhao had taken out the black trident from the start, he might not have been able to win. Instead, Red Eagle would be more cautious and fight Qin Zhao more carefully. Only when Red Eagle was the most arrogant and relaxed. When he thought victory was in his grasp, attacking when Red Eagle couldn't dodge was the best opportunity. Reality proved that Qin Zhao's decision was correct. Using the black trident at any time was better than using it as a last resort. Qin Zhao put away Red Eagle's corpse and turned to look at the other battlefield. Seeing that its ally had died, the three-headed demon's expression changed drastically. He knew very well how terrifying this ally of his was. Even it wasn't confident that it could defeat Red Eagle. In fact, it even thought that Red Eagle was immortal. But now the immortal Red Eagle had been killed by an unknown enemy. This made him turn pale with fright. Run. He had to run. The three-headed demon turned to run. But at that moment, Iris suddenly pounced on the three-headed demon. The demon immediately wrapped itself around Iris, as if it wanted to strangle her to death. Then Beelzebub, Zophie, also pounced. Just then, Beelzebub, Zophie suddenly took out the Kingslayer. Under Beelzebub, Zophie's spell, the Kingslayer suddenly grew 1,000 times larger. Beelzebub, Zophie, swung the Kingslayer. The Kingslayer smashed onto one of the demon's heads. In an instant, the dragon head was smashed into pieces. The color of the Kingslayer's metal surface actually changed. The Kingslayer turned black. Ah, what's that? The remaining 2 heads of the 3-headed demon screamed in terror. The Kingslayer was swung horizontally by Beelzebub, Zophie again. Whoosh! Instantly, blood and flesh flew everywhere. The second head was smashed into pieces. Just like Chen Zhao, Beelzebub Zophie was also waiting for an opportunity. He was waiting for the opportunity to deal the fatal blow to the 3-headed demon. Chen Zhao killing Red Eagle made the demon lose its sense of propriety. At the same time, it created an opportunity for Beelzebub Zophie. At this time, Iris also broke free from the 3-headed demon that had lost 2 heads. Due to the death of the other 2 heads, the 3-headed demon's last head was unprecedentedly weak. On the other hand, Beelzebub, Zophie's Kingslayer, was perfected after absorbing the flesh of 2 great lords. This was the final process of the Kingslayer. It was evolving toward perfection. Divine Emperor of the 9 Heavens. Chapter 23-26. Iris finally had a chance to counterattack. Being suppressed by the 3-headed demon earlier had made her feel very uncomfortable. Now that there was only 1 head left, Iris had nothing to worry about anymore. A huge dragon claw grabbed the last head and gave it a fatal dragon breath. Of course, the dragon breath had only injured the 3-headed demon. Even though it only had 1 head left, it still had a tenacious life force. Beelzebub Zophie ignored the last dragon head and did not use Kingslayer again. Instead, he grabbed the 2 corpses on the ground and stuffed them into his mouth. He was a great lord of gluttony. He could devour everything, including his enemies. The 3-headed demon's terrifying power clashed with Beelzebub Zophie's power in his body. However, the 3-headed demon's power was without a master after all. How could it defeat Beelzebub Zophie? As Beelzebub Zophie devoured the 3-headed demon, he dissolved its power at the same time. His flesh and essence were all becoming a part of Beelzebub Zophie. This kind of devouring temporarily made Beelzebub Zophie weak. Although he had a very pure gluttony bloodline, he could not immediately turn the enemy he devoured into a part of himself. It needed to be digested and refined. On the battlefield, it was rare to have a chance to devour someone else's flesh and essence. Only now would the situation be set in stone. Even if there were still enemies, it would not matter. Only then would Beelzebub Zophie dare to devour his enemies without worry. Iris was also gnawing on the 3-headed demon's last dying head. However, she did not have the gluttony bloodline. She was purely venting her anger. Chun Zhao also watched from the side, watching how Iris tortured her dying opponent. Iris, move. I'll do it. Beelzebub Zophie had recovered some power. He mentioned the Kingslayer again and looked at the 3-headed demon's last head on the ground. 3-headed demon, you look like you've been prepared for a long time. Who told you? Zophie, do you still need someone else to inform you? Your actions have long since attracted the king's attention. My territory is adjacent to yours, so you will naturally attack me first. Moreover, we have already formed an alliance, so my death will not bring you anything. It will only cause you to follow in my footsteps. Now, all the lords under the king will directly attack you. Just you wait, just you wait. Huh. The 3-headed devil did not beg for mercy. He knew that begging for mercy was useless. Their identities and positions had already determined their fates. Either you die or I die. Of course, Beelzebub Zophie would not show mercy just because of the 3-headed demon's threat. It directly devoured the last head of the 3-headed devil. Due to the clash of powers, Beelzebub Zophii became even weaker. Beelzebub Zophii transformed into his human form, while Iris remained in her original form. She circled around Beelzebub Zophii. Only then did Chen Zhao land beside Beelzebub Zophii. You look like you're in bad shape. I just devoured the three-headed demon. Our powers are violently clashing in my body. I can't digest his power in a short time. This is for you. Chen Zhao tossed a few demonic crystals to Beelzebub Zophii. In contrast to angelic crystals, demonic crystals were great supplements for demons. Of course, for a demon lord like Beelzebub Zophii, regular demonic crystals were useless. However, Chen Zhao had given him perfect demonic crystals. They were rare treasures, even for lords. Beelzebub Zophii did not argue with Chen Zhao. He grabbed the demonic crystals and stuffed them into his mouth. How is it? A little better, Beelzebub Zophii said. I heard the three-headed demon's last words. All the lords under the Demon King will attack you. This shouldn't be within the King of Gluttony's protection rules, right? I know, Beelzebub Zophii said. Seems like my plan has triggered the Demon King's nerves. How many lords does that Demon King have? A few dozen. What do we do now? Chen Zhao asked worriedly. No matter how strong Beelzebub Zophii was, he could not defend against a few dozen lords attacking him at the same time. Moreover, Beelzebub Zophii did not have absolute power. Even with Iris's strength, Iris was only as strong as an ordinary great lord. They can't all come out at the same time. After all, they all have their own enemies, and they have to guard against each other. The Demon King can't order them to attack me directly, because that's the same as attacking me. Then Her Majesty can intervene. So it's a close shave? No. Even if it's only a third or a quarter of the lords, or even 5 of them attacking me, Iris and I will still be in danger. If you need help next time, just summon me, Chen Zhao said seriously. After coming to hell so many times, Chen Zhao no longer felt lost or afraid of it. He was not very familiar with it, but he was at least half familiar with it. In hell, only demons above the Demon King level could kill him. Although they were both great lord rank demons, it would not be easy for them to kill him. Also, if he could not defeat them, he could still run. His speed was top-notch even in the infernal realm. Therefore, there was no reason that he could not run. At most, he could just run to the places of the bosses he knew. In the face of life and death, he did not care about his reputation. It was not convenient for them to intervene, and he did not ask them to. If he ran to their homes, the pursuers would not dare to barge in. I won't fall that easily, Beelzebub Zophii said stubbornly. Yes, it's indeed not easy to find 5 lords, Chen Zhao said mockingly. By the way, do you really not have a solution? Not yet. Beelzebub Zophii shook his head with a gloomy expression. If I can't handle it, I'll just run away and then deal with them one by one. Can't I? I'm different from you, Beelzebub Zophii said. Do you know why I'm a great lord? Why? Because my territory is my foundation and the source of my power. The bigger my territory, the more power I can contain. This is also why the three-headed demon did not choose to run when he knew I would attack him, Beelzebub Zophii said. Beelzebub Zophii said, in the entire hell, countless lords fight each other because the size of their territory determines the upper limit of a lord's power. Now that you've taken over the three-headed demon's territory, does that mean you're much more powerful than before? I'm talking about my upper limit, not my current power, Beelzebub Zophii said. Then, if you defeat all the great lords under the Demon King, will the Demon King become weak too? Chapter 23:27. Beelzebub Zophii shook his head. The Demon King's power doesn't come from the size of his territory. It comes from the rules. As long as he controls the rules, I can't defeat him. Can't defeat him? Then what are you doing? Trying to kill yourself? The so-called impossible is relative. He controls the rules, but he is also restricted by the rules. My plan is nothing more than dancing on a tightrope. The risk is great, but if I can replace the Demon King, then the benefits will naturally be great. Although Beelzebub Zophie was being roasted on a stove, he'd still conquered a territory. He couldn't lose out on the benefits. Chen Zhao wouldn't go easy on his share. Next, it was time to split the spoils. Chun Zhao watched as large amounts of resources were carried out. Most of these resources were unique to hell. They weren't worth much in the human world. Chun Zhao felt a bit depressed. He wasn't an alchemist. He could only sell these things to alchemists in the human world. Most alchemists in the human world couldn't even use them. What else could he do? Even if Chun Zhao gave all the resources to Ruan Faxabin, he wouldn't be able to use them. Let's not talk about making use of it. He should first identify all the materials. Some things were worth a lot of money in the human world, but to Chun Zhao, it was just a drop in the ocean. For Chun Zhao's current wealth, there was no qualitative increase. This made Chun Zhao feel even more depressed. What heel of the dead? What heart of black iron? He had never heard of these things. As for what they were used for, it was even more unclear. Just then, Beelzebub Zophie and Iris walked up to Chun Zhao. What? You're crying after getting such a large amount of wealth. You should be happier. Look at me, I'm dying. I'm not as sad as you. The thing is, I can't exchange these things for wealth. Don't you feel depressed? How about this? I'll trade with you with something, Beelzebub Zophie said, smiling. What? Chun Zhao was instantly energized. If it was some priceless treasure, he was happy to exchange these resources. Him. Just then, Beelzebub Zophie pointed at a demon behind him. The demon had a normal body. He had sharp ears, completely black eyes, and a skinny body. His hands and feet were all shackled. Him? You want to trade him for all the resources of a great lord? No matter who he is, he's not worth that price. Chun Zhao shook his head. Business was business, and friendship was friendship, even if he couldn't turn these resources into the wealth he needed. However, this did not mean that these resources were worthless. Beelzebub Zophie wanted to trade an unknown demon for such a huge amount of resources. What kind of joke was this? He's the chief alchemist under the three-headed devil Felt Nitak. Just him alone is more valuable than the 900 alchemists in my alchemy army. I was wondering if I should use him to trade for resources. But given my current situation, I can only choose to trade him with resources. After all, these resources can solve my urgent problems. Zophie nodded. Can he make a divine weapon for me? Chun Zhao asked in disdain. Ruan Faxi had always said that he wanted to forge a divine artifact and leave his name in the annals of history. However, even if a large amount of rare materials were placed in front of him, he would not be able to do so. Up until now, he still hadn't figured it out. Those precious materials had indeed been used to create some powerful alchemy tools. However, they were only powerful. They were still worlds apart from a divine weapon. Yes, I can. At this time, Felt Nitak spoke first. As long as the Honorable Sir can provide the materials needed for the divine artifact, this lowly one can create a divine artifact for you. Chun Zhao could not finish his sentence. After a while he said, even so, he's still not worth it. How about half the resources? He's more useful than you think. Half is still too much. Tell me what benefits he can bring me first. Forget about the divine weapon. A divine artifact was a divine artifact. How powerful it was up to the benevolent to see it. Could he drag the handsome guy down from the throne with the divine weapon? Could he make Beelzebub Zophie defeat all the great lords attacking him? No, this was clearly impossible. If this demon was really that capable, Beelzebub Zophie would not have sent him out. I remember that you collected 100 portions of the blood of the King of Power's subordinates, right? Yes, I did. Chun Zhao nodded. He'd even asked Beelzebub Zophie to collect it for him. Did you make the finished product? He can, Beelzebub Zophie said, pointing at Felt Nitak. Chun Zhao clearly remembered that he'd been able to break through to the Great Lord level because of the handsome guy and Belial's guidance. He'd also gained enlightenment from the blood of the King of Power's subordinates. At the time, he hadn't collected 100 portions of the King of Power's blood yet. Even so, he'd still successfully comprehended an unimaginable level of power from it. His increase in power was also guided by King Kong. As a pure subordinate of the King of Power, King Kong had the ability to see through the nature of all power. Of course, seeing through didn't mean that he could do it himself. Chun Zhao's power had long surpassed his, but he could still guide Chun Zhao in this aspect. Chun Zhao had followed his method and collected 100 portions of the King of Power's blood, but he still couldn't use it to increase Chun Zhao's power. Even knowing the method didn't mean that he could do it. For example, everyone knew that there were resources on the moon, but how could he obtain them? Go play with your balls. The 100 portions of blood Chun Zhao had were materials to build a spaceship. Then, who would build this spaceship? The engineer was here. Beelzebub Zophie had sent him here. Collect half of the resources yourself. Chun Zhao said straightforwardly. He's mine now. This was the first time Chun Zhao had made such a domineering declaration to someone, and it was a male demon. Greetings, master. Felt Nitak knelt on one knee and swore loyalty to Chun Zhao. Good boy. Smiling, Chun Zhao looked at Felt. Zophie, help me unlock his shackles. Also, help me find a place to stay. Master, can I continue to use my old lab? Chun Zhao looked at Beelzebub Zophie. Beelzebub Zophie was also straightforward. I'll return all your old stuff, including your lab and everything inside. Chapter 23-28. When can I get the finished product? Chun Zhao asked. 1 month, I promise, Fert Nitak replied. 1 month, right? I don't want to hear news that it needs to be delayed. Yes, I'll definitely give you the finished product within a month. I can't sort through this pile of resources. I can't even recognize everything. Help me organize them when you have time. Master, I'm afraid I can't organize them in a short time if I'm alone. Fert Nitak looked helplessly at the mountain of supplies in front of him. There were at least hundreds of thousands of tons of resources. There were all sorts of things. There could be hundreds of thousands of types. Even if Felt could clone himself, he wouldn't be able to organize them in a short time. I'll ask Zophie for some people to be your subordinates. Master, I have 2 assistants. They're still with Mr. Zophie. They're great helpers. Sure, I'll ask for them for you, Chun Zhao said. For Chun Zhao and Beelzebub Zophie, this was a piece of cake. When Chun Zhao asked Beelzebub Zophie for people, Beelzebub Zophie gave them to Chun Zhao without hesitation. At the same time, he gave Chun Zhao a group of 5,000 underlings. Chun Zhao had some underlings in his house, and Blackie's alternate space had a large number of them too. Therefore, Chun Zhao had interacted with underlings many times. He had a good impression of them and was more at ease. They were very hardworking. After recognizing their master, they would be loyal to him. Underlings wouldn't betray their masters. Usually, every demon would raise a few underling groups. However, these underling groups wouldn't be directly loyal to their breeders. The breeders would usually replenish some underlings after a period of time. Only then would these chosen underlings be loyal to the breeders. Of course, some demons raised underlings for sale. They wouldn't let the underlings be loyal to them directly. Once their original master was defeated or killed, the underlings that had already been loyal to the demon would lose their right to exist. For example, the 3-headed demon had been defeated by Beelzebub Zophie. The underlings that had been loyal to the 3-headed demon had also been completely eliminated by Beelzebub Zophie. What Beelzebub Zophie could bring out were those who were domesticated but had never been loyal to anyone. But now, The underlings that Chen Zhao had gotten from Beelzebub Sophie were loyal to him. At first, Chen Zhao wasn't used to inferior demons, but now, Chen Zhao was used to having underlings assist him in his daily life. He didn't plan on bringing these 5,000 underlings back to the human world. Instead, he left it behind and handed it over to Fert Nitak to manage. After that, he left Beelzebub Sophie's territory because someone was summoning him. Belia. She sensed that she had arrived in hell. However, she did not summon Chen Zhao directly. Instead, she sent him a message. Chen Zhao crossed layers of mountains in hell, passing through vast plains and barren deserts. However, it was still far away from Belial's palace. Just then, Chen Zhao felt like his body was enveloped by some power. Instantly, Chen Zhao felt a terrifying pressure. Even his physical body felt like it was going to be crushed under this pressure. And this force was bringing him forward at an even faster speed. Even an ocean could be passed by in the blink of an eye. It was too fast, indescribably fast. Mountains, rivers, and oceans flashed past like lights. When Chen Zhao stopped, he saw countless stars dotting the ground. They were shining spheres embedded in the ground. Some were big and some were small. The big ones were several meters wide, while the small ones were only the size of a fist. In the center of the stars was a domed palace. Chen Zhao landed in front of the palace and strolled inside. It was his first time entering Belial's palace from the outside. In the past, he was always summoned into the palace directly. When he entered, the luminous pearls embedded in the pillars along the way lit up. Chen Zhao saw Belial lying lazily on the throne in the deep hall. "You're too slow." "At least I made it here." Chen Zhao shrugged. If Chen Zhao had flown here with his own speed, he might not even reach in a few months. Only Belial's power could bring him here so quickly. "I'm very sad that you didn't come to find me immediately after coming to hell. If you really need me, you can summon me from the human world to hell." 2 maids brought over some fruits from hell. Chen Zhao sat down and started eating. "You have a special smell." Belial sat up. Her body was huge. Wherever she sat, she was more than 10 meters tall. Belial leaned over and sniffed Chen Zhao's body. This was the first time Chen Zhao saw Belial stand up on her own. "I have a special smell. I just fought with a great lord, and—" "I'm not talking about the little firebird smell," Belial interrupted. "What's in your spatial ring?" Chen Zhao tossed the spatial ring to Belial and told her to find it herself. A while later, Belial took out a huge heart. Chen Zhao had collected this when he'd fought with the giant snake in the barren land. "You mean this is the special smell on me? This is the Titan snake's heart, but it's been modified." "Is it very rare?" Chen Zhao asked curiously. "If it's a pure Titan snake instead of this twisted thing, it'll be even more valuable." "What's so valuable?" All Chen Zhao could think of was that it could either be used to make something or be eaten. Belial wasn't Beelzebub, the king of gluttony. She probably didn't have that much desire for food. So Chen Zhao guessed that this thing was probably used to make something. "It's not what you think." Even though Chen Zhao didn't say anything, Belial could still tell what he was thinking. "You can read minds. You know what I'm thinking." "It's a guess," Belial said. "Just like how you can tell what an animal is doing." "Am I an animal in your eyes?" "No. In my eyes, animals can't communicate." "What's this thing for?" "Titan snakes are special creatures. If they evolve into world snakes, they'll create a small world." "Alternate dimension? I can open one myself." Belial shook her head. "No. No matter how big your alternate dimension is, it's just an alternate dimension. No matter how small a small world is, it's still a world." "What's the difference between a small world and an alternate dimension?" "There's not much difference, but a small world can produce natural elements. An alternate dimension can only rely on the main world to have natural elements. It can't produce natural elements by itself." Chapter 23:29. It still doesn't mean anything to me. What was the difference between a small world that could produce spiritual chi and an alternate dimension? Essentially, there was no difference to Qin Zhao. That's true for you, Belia said, but it's different for me. What's the use? I can create a race and throw them into the small world to develop on their own. Then, I'll take back the small world. So, that small world is like a ranch to you, right? You can understand it that way, but the difference is that I'm not taking back those races. I'm taking back the world itself. How does that work? Chen Zhao was even more curious. It's very complicated and hard to explain, Belia said. At least last time, you've proven that you can't understand this with your comprehension. Last time on the ice plains, Chen Zhao had received both Belia and the handsome guy's guidance. In the end, he'd barely broken through. At that time, Belia and the handsome guy had complained about Chen Zhao's comprehension. But Chen Zhao's curiosity only lasted for 3 minutes. Then it was time for Belia. Both of them were familiar with it, until Chen Zhao's time in hell ended. Chen Zhao returned to the human world. Just then, Chen Zhao's phone suddenly received countless messages and missed calls. Hey, Belia, you've called me 168 times in the past 24 hours. What's so urgent? Chen Zhao, you're finally here. Where did you go yesterday? Something. Chen Zhao didn't explain. Jerlin woke up yesterday and realized you weren't here. She's been crying. Are you and Jerlin at the hotel? I'll go right now. No, I brought Jerlin to watch the match. What match? Soccer match? Trial, it's the third trial. Papa, I want to talk to Papa. Just then, Jerlin snatched Belia's phone. Papa, I miss you, she said pitifully. Papa, where are you? Jerlin, be good next to Uncle Belia. I'll go find you now. Oh, Uncle Belia, here's your phone. Where's the trial? Sense the entire Istanbul and see where the spiritual qi is the most abundant. Chen Zhao furrowed his brows. He rose into the air and expanded his small world completely. As expected, Chen Zhao sensed a large amount of dense spiritual qi gathering in the southeast of Istanbul. Chen Zhao headed southeast. Chen Zhao came to the place with the densest spiritual qi, but found nothing there. There was only one mountain, as well as lush vegetation. Chen Zhao's small world expanded again. He still couldn't find anything. Just then, Chen Zhao felt someone appear nearby. There were 10 of them in total, and all of them were spiritualists. Each of them had a large amount of magic power. Chen Zhao skipped over it and went up to the man. It was Matthew, Angie, and the others. Who are you? The person was very wary of Chen Zhao's sudden appearance. But when 5 of them saw Chen Zhao, they couldn't help but be stunned. Chen, it's you! Matthew exclaimed in surprise. Matthew, it's you guys! Chen Zhao greeted Matthew. Why are you here? We finished the third trial, so we came out directly. Chen, what are you doing here? I heard from my friend that the entrance to the third trial is here, but I couldn't find it after searching for a long time. I'll take you there, Matthew offered. Sure. Chen Zhao landed on the ground. Matthew turned to Angie. Angie, take them back to the hotel. I'll go with Chen. Okay. Angie looked at Chen Zhao and nodded slightly. That day, everyone had fainted. Only Angie and Matthew were conscious. She knew very well how intense the battle between Chen Zhao and the Red Demon had been. The destruction of Desolate Market was also related to Chen Zhao. Angie, who's that? He seems to be very familiar with you. Matthew rarely shows such enthusiasm. That guy? He's a monster, Angie said calmly. Monster? Of course. Everyone understood what Angie meant by monster. He's strong? Yes. How strong? Even stronger than Matthew? With the 10 of us together, we should be able to last 5 seconds. Don't joke. How old is he? Angie isn't joking, Boanta said. The entrance to the third trial was in a cave in the mountains. Matthew took Qinzhao through the cave and entered a strange space filled with birdsong and fragrant flowers. The place was covered in the scent of spring. The projected sun was also dazzling and warm. It didn't have the gray, deathly stillness of desolate market at all. There was a milky white palace before them. It had the style of an ancient Greek temple. Let's go. The Palace of Four Seasons is in front of us. Matthew took Qinzhao into the Palace of Four Seasons. The Palace of Four Seasons looked like a huge Colosseum. There were many spiritualists in the audience. In the Colosseum, there were dozens of spiritualists. They were facing three figures. The three figures looked very strange. Chen Zhao couldn't feel their breathing. However, they emitted powerful auras. Those three are the puppet bodies controlled by Celestial Master Zhang. 23rd Blood Mary and Mr. Wendy, Matthew said. Qin Zhao patted his head. He remembered that Bifla had mentioned this before. I thought it would be teams against the three. Why are there so many teams against the three of them at the same time? There's nothing we can do about it. In the first few groups, they fought against the puppets of the three seniors. However, they were all killed in an instant. Even our group had to work together with the other groups to obtain victory. If it were just one group, almost no group would be able to pass the trial. Matthew's team was the top seed in this year's Battle of Holy Glory. Perhaps only the Celestial Master sect from Dragon Tiger Mountain could fight against them. Even Matthew said that it was almost impossible for a team to pass the trial. That meant that the trial this time was extremely difficult. Qin Zhao glanced at the battle in the center of the field. It indeed looked intense. However, Qin Zhao wasn't interested in this battle. He went to find Jerlin and Bifla. Soon, Qin Zhao found them. Matthew, I found someone. If you're busy, you should go ahead and do it. Okay. If you need me, you can call me. There's signal here. Got it. Jerlin had been sitting on Bifla's lap, watching the trial in the Colosseum. However, one of her eyes saw Qin Zhao. She suddenly turned in Qin Zhao's direction. Papa! Jerlin's short legs jumped to the ground. Qin Zhao hurried forward and caught Jerlin before she hit the ground. Papa, Papa, Papa. Jerlin was very excited. Chapter 23:30. Qin Zhao tossed Jerlin high into the air. Little Jerlin laughed heartily. She couldn't stop giggling. The little tantrum she'd had because she couldn't see Qin Zhao disappeared in the blink of an eye. After playing with Jerlin for a while, Qin Zhao sat beside Bifla. It's been hard on you these days. Other than when she cries, Bifla said calmly. Jerlin's usually very likable. Uncle Bifla, has Jerlin been naughty these days? Jerlin was in Qin Zhao's arms, but her short hand was holding Bifla's arm. She stared at Bifla with her big eyes. At Bifla's position, he basically wouldn't fall for anything but Jerlin's tricks. Jerlin's always been good, Bifla said, smiling. Where have you been these days? Not 2 days. More accurately, I've been gone for 24 hours. Okay, where have you been in the past 24 hours? Qin Zhao took out a bright red feather. Bifla took it. There was still a faint aura lingering on it. But this faint aura made people's hearts palpitate. It was like a fatal poison. No matter how small the amount, it was still frightening. What's this? Such a scary aura. Would you believe me if I said I went to maintain world peace? If you went to destroy this thing, I believe you, Bifla said seriously. When he heard Qin Zhao's words, he didn't think too much about it. He just thought that a terrifying monster had appeared somewhere, and Qin Zhao had gone to destroy it. Just from the aura emitted by the feather, if such a monster really appeared, it would definitely be a disaster. Anything else? Bifla asked. With your habits, if you destroy this monster, you'll probably collect its corpse, right? Do you want it? Yes. Bifla nodded. For what? There's a special power on it. The magic in my body is being attracted by it. I want to research what's so attractive about it. How much? As much as you have. Chen Zhao took out 2 red eagle feathers. Take them first. I'll pluck all the feathers from the corpse later. In return, if I get any results from my research, I will share them with you. At this moment, the battle below had already ended. Another batch of participants was swapped out, and the opponents were still 3 puppet bodies. Antigaya! Antigaya! Jerlin immediately cried out in excitement. One of the teams in the mall happened to be from the supernatural organization. Bifla glanced at Chen Zhao. Your team seems to be in trouble. What's wrong? Chen Zhao asked. My team isn't weak, and it looks like the other teams aren't bad either. Why is there trouble? Among those teams, there's a team whose members are all notorious soul catchers. What the hell? What is a soul catcher? Soul catcher was a spell of the soul. It was a spell that specialized in attacking the soul. So what? Will they attack their comrades? Chen Zhao asked. They won't take the initiative to attack their comrades, but they habitually treat all the living people around them as their weapons. As long as it's the soul of an enemy or a comrade standing in front of them, they will use it as a weapon to attack the enemy. Facing them are Celestial Master Zhang, Blood Mary, and Wendy. No matter which one of them is a soul they can't absorb, so they will definitely attack the souls of the people around them. Chen Zhao frowned, but then he understood. If my people fall here, it only means that they aren't skilled enough. I can't be blamed. Chen Zhao wasn't worried about their lives. Out of the 3 people in front of him, 2 of them were his friends. Even if Chen Zhao didn't do anything, the other 2 wouldn't just stand by and watch. Of course, it wasn't accurate to call them friends. They were more like friends. They discussed and communicated with each other. Soon the battle began. 5 teams of 50 people began to launch a fierce attack on the 3 puppet bodies. But the 3 puppets were easily dispelled. Zhang Tianyi, 23rd Blood Mary, and Wendy's magic power were suppressed to the same level as the opponents. But their realms were still there. Their magic knowledge wasn't something the opponents could compare to. They even had much more battle experience than the opponents. So, it still wasn't a fair battle. For them, numbers were just barely enough to maintain an undefeatable situation. It was not a bargaining chip for them to achieve victory. Soon, the 50 people were cut off by the 3. Chen Zhao shook his head. There was indeed a clear difference. Zhang Tianyi, Blood Mary, and Wendy, who controlled the puppet bodies, had precise control over their magic. They forced the opponents to take out their trump cards. It feels like 3 boxers are beating 50 kids. Chen Zhao shook his head. Indeed, it feels like even though they have the same magic power level, the realm is too different. After that, the 10 soul catchers attacked their comrades who were on the same side. And the first to suffer was Morid from the supernatural organization. Because he wasn't prepared, Morid's soul was pulled out by one of the soul catchers and thrown to the other side. Chen Zhao frowned when he saw his subordinates being betrayed and hurt. Normally, Chen Zhao would really go up and beat them to death. But this was the arena, and it was public. Furthermore, the other party's actions were allowed in principle. At most, it was a moral problem. So, Chen Zhao just sat there and clenched his fists. He really wanted to rush down and beat them up, but he resisted in the end. Forget it. I'm not watching anymore. In the end, Chen Zhao picked up Jerlin and planned to leave. Great. I'm not going to keep watching either. Let's go, Bifla said, standing up. Aren't you going to wait for your team to go up? They've already gone up. 3 were eliminated. 7 advanced. Chen Zhao looked at the center of the arena. The supernatural organizations team would probably eliminate a few people too. But because the soul catchers had ambushed their comrades and used their soul attacks, the other teams immediately took revenge. This caused the situation to go out of control. The other teams didn't care about the 3 puppets at all. They all turned to the soul catchers. Walking to the edge of the audience seats, Chen Zhao couldn't help but look at the battle in the arena. A bunch of bastards who harm others without benefiting themselves. Chen Zhao cursed again. Their magic didn't have any effect. Instead, it messed up their formation. Plus, they weren't that powerful. They were beaten up by the other teams. The 10 soul catchers were all eliminated by their comrades. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 2331. Li Pan, where have you been these past 2 days? Ederson asked Li Pan. They'd heard that Li Pan had gone to work for Celestial Master Zhang. However, Li Pan's departure was extremely mysterious, and when she returned, she was also very mysterious. She didn't say a single word about where she'd gone. Nevertheless, everyone was still envious of Li Pan, who'd advanced directly. Work, Li Pan said. What work? Don't ask. Li Pan shook her head. She'd actually come out yesterday. However, she'd been hiding from her companions. She hadn't calmed down yet. She was worried that she'd blurt out everything she'd seen. If her companions found out, it might not be a good thing for them. Would Chen Zhao kill her to keep her quiet? Very likely. Forget it, Ederson said. You can tell us when you want to, as long as you're fine. How was your trial? Li Pan asked. Ederson shook his head bitterly. We were all eliminated. The trial this time was too difficult. Just then, Ederson's phone rang. Hey, Cliff. Ederson, Amber and I are in trouble. Can you lend us some money? Huh. What trouble? Where are you now? We're hiding in a small hotel. Give me the address. I'll go pick you up. After getting the address, Ederson hung up the phone. What happened? My friend, Amber and Cliff, whom you've met before, they seem to be in some trouble. I'll go pick them up now. Do you know what's going on? Not sure yet. Let's go together. Maybe I'll be useful. Ederson thought for a moment and then nodded. The two drove to the hotel where Cliff and Amber were hiding. They found their room and pushed the door open. It was dark inside. The couple looked rather disheveled. There were also injuries on their faces. They seemed to have just fought with someone. Cliff, Amber, what happened to you? It's only been 3 days. How did you end up like this? Amber and Clive wanted to cry, but no tears came out. 2 days ago, we were driving on the street and got into a car accident. Car accident? I suspect that it was not an accident at all. It was a scam, Ampa said indignantly. That guy deliberately rushed into the road. Is it a scam? Ederson looked at Clive. I'm not sure. When the guy was hit by the car, he immediately jumped up and demanded compensation from us. We wanted to call the police, but he was very angry. He demanded compensation from us and prevented us from calling the police. At that time, we were also in a hurry and didn't want to continue entangling with that guy. So Ampa used the soulless spell to make that guy forget about the car accident for a short time. Ederson and Lapon could understand. They were all spiritualists. Normally, they wouldn't attack ordinary people. But if he encountered some trouble, the first thing he would think of was to use magic to solve the problem. It wasn't just Cliff and Ampa. Most spiritualists were the same. Although the rule of not harming ordinary people was like the sword of Damocles hanging over their heads. Restricting the majority of spiritualists, most spiritualists could not do anything. However, most spiritualists had tried to play around the edges. This kind of borderline ball would be troublesome if someone pursued it, but very few people would be so bored as to pursue it. Clive and Ampa also took it for granted that their method of solving the problem was fine. Of course, this rule was useless against spiritualists like Qin Zhao. Even if Chen Zhao had used supernatural powers to destroy a gang, he would not be able to do so. No one could control him. Who could? There were only a few people in the entire spiritual world who could control Qin Zhao. They wouldn't cause trouble for him for a gang. What happened next? Ederson asked. Then, a group of gangsters stopped us. The leader was also a spiritualist. He beat us up and demanded $100,000 as compensation. Otherwise, he wouldn't let us go. You mean a spiritualist and a gang of gang members? Ederson's face was filled with shock. Spiritualists had all sorts of identities in the world of ordinary people. However, it was rare for a spiritualist to join a gang meeting. To them, controlling a gang would be more beneficial to them. They wouldn't participate in it themselves, because if they were personally involved in it, they wouldn't be able to use magic to replace some violent methods. Because of the restriction of that rule, even if a spiritualist became a gangs fighter, he would have to use ordinary methods instead of magic. Therefore, capable spiritualists might try to control a gang in order to amass wealth instead of doing things themselves. Of course, spiritualists who did not have the ability would usually stay away from gangs. From Cliff and Ampa's narration, Ederson and Li Pan roughly guessed it. That gang was indeed trying to scam them. However, they couldn't tell if they were trying to scam a spiritualist, or maybe they just happened to meet them. Looking for trouble with spiritualists seemed more risky than normal people. In reality, it wasn't. Low-level and mediocre spiritualists were actually the easiest to bully. They didn't have any power or background. Plus, they were afraid of that rule, so they were even more restricted to normal people. There was once an incident where a gang controlled by a higher-level spiritualist targeted a lower-level spiritualist. Do you know their name? That spiritualist, Arhen Terrell. Ederson and Li Pan couldn't help but look at each other. Ederson asked again, "Are you sure that's his name?" Cliff nodded. "That's what he said." "Is he an Indian?" "Yes." "Do you know him?" "Don't you know the name?" Ederson asked. "No. You know that we're only in contact with the North American spirit world. The North American spirit world is only so big. Isn't this troublesome?" "Very." Ederson's expression was solemn. "Arhen Terrell practices Hindu magic and is very powerful. He's also known as a rogue in the spirit world." "Does no one care about him?" "It's not that no one cares about him, but most of the time he doesn't leave any evidence. Even if someone with higher status and strength interferes, he can easily escape. Most of the time his targets are people like you who don't have any background." Chapter 2332. Ederson's expression was uncomfortable. Arhen Terrell wasn't alone. He had a group of loyal subordinates, all spiritualists. His style was basically the same. He would go to a new place and control the local club or gang. Then, he would use the gang's regular people to attack the target. Although this was a routine operation, it was very troublesome for ordinary spiritualists like Cliff and Ampa. They would be bullied by regular gang members. If they dared to use magic to resist, they would be attacked by Arhen Terrell's trusted subordinates. Or they could threaten them directly and use their fear of rules to blackmail them. The targets they chose were all low-level spiritualists. They had no strength or background and were easy to bully. Once they chose the wrong target, they would decisively give up and retreat. This was why they could get away with it for so long. Ederson really wanted to help Cliff and Ampa, but Arhen Terrell and his subordinates weren't people he could go against. Li Pan was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "I'll see if I can find someone to help you solve this problem." Ederson turned to look at Li Pan in surprise. "Do you know anyone who can solve this problem?" "Yes," Li Pan said. "If he's willing to help, it'll be solved." "It's Celestial Master Zhang?" Li Pan shook his head. "No, but if he's willing to help, it'll be no different from Celestial Master Zhang." Ederson was even more surprised. After thinking for a while, he asked, "It's that guy?" "Yes, it's him. He has that much power. He's very strong. He's just one person. He's enough." With that, Li Pan took out his phone and called Chen Zhao. "Hello, Mr. Chin. It's me. What's up?" I want to ask for your help. It's just a small matter for you. Go ahead." "It's like this." Li Pan told Chen Zhao the whole story. Chen Zhao was silent for 3 seconds on the other end. Then he said, "Sure." With that, Chen Zhao hung up. Li Pan felt like he was about to collapse. He sat on the edge of the bed. Although that guy is very powerful, there's no need to be so scared after a phone call, right? Ederson said with a frown. Even now, he still didn't have a clear understanding of Chen Zhao. Li Pan looked at Ederson and said, "If possible, I hope to never have any contact with him again. Is there a need to be so scared?" Li Pan shook her head. She didn't dare to tell Ederson about what she had seen 2 days ago. The impact of Qin Zhao on her daughter's third night was too great. "Li Pan, is there really no problem? Are you sure that guy solved your problem?" "Don't worry. Since he agreed, there won't be any problems. Argentero isn't a common shaman. After all, Cliff and Ampa hadn't had much contact with the outside world of the North American supernatural world. That was why Argentero was still a stranger to him. What kind of background does that Argentero have? He is a traitor of Hinduism. For a long time, he was hunted by the upper echelons of Hinduism, but he either escaped or was killed. The long period of escape allowed him to develop a very powerful combat ability, and he once won the title of Holy Glorious One in 2 consecutive Holy Glorious battles. Everything Cliff and Ampa knew about the Battle of the Holy Glory came from Ederson. That was why they didn't have a clear understanding of the holy battles either. What does the holy battles mean? Naturally, they thought that it was a kind of competition. The 10 people who obtain the title of Holy Glory each time are the 10 most outstanding spiritualists of their generation. Argentero obtained the title of Holy Glory twice 30 years ago and 20 years ago, respectively. That is to say, 30 years ago, he was one of the most outstanding spiritualists in the world. After 30 years, his reputation as a genius was gradually replaced by the news of his evil deeds, and people gradually neglected Argentero's strength. But after so many years, he will only become stronger, not weaker. Ederson looked at Li Pan. "That's why I'm doubtful that the person you found can solve this problem." Li Pan shook her head. "You can't understand how terrifying that guy is. That day when we fought him, he didn't even use 1/10 of his strength. Have you ever seen him display his true strength?" "Yes, but I don't know if what I saw was his full strength. Anyway, he's a terrifyingly powerful shaman. He's the scariest guy I've ever seen. I hope it's as you say. Since this Argentero is the final winner of the 2 holy battles, why would he betray us?" Qin Zhao asked Bifla in confusion while carrying Jerlin. "Whether it's the power he's from or himself, he's a very strange guy," Bifla said. "Strange? This word sounds so awkward coming out of your mouth. Because when we talk about Argentero and the power behind him, I can't think of any other word other than strange. Seems like the story behind this must be very interesting. Argentero is from a lower caste, and his wish is to marry a woman from a higher caste. He has taken a fancy to his teacher's daughter, and his teacher has promised him that if he can obtain the title of Holy Glory, then he will let his daughter marry him. Hearing this beginning, I think it's a poignant love story. But in reality, it's not a love story but a farce," Bifla said. Bifla said he obtained the title of Holy Glory for the first time and went to his teacher, hoping that his teacher would agree to his request. His teacher also agreed to his request, but after marriage, he discovered that his wife was not a virgin. Although he was very unhappy, he eventually swallowed his anger and pretended that none of this had happened. Not long after, they had a child. Not long after? Yes, it's exactly what you think. And then, while he was participating in the Second Holy Glorious War, his wife got pregnant again. Is it what I think? Yes, his wife's second child isn't his either. Chapter 2333. People were always curious about gossip. Qin Zhao was the same, especially when it was a farce or a tragedy. It was a comedy in the eyes of a bystander. Argentero isn't an idiot, but his decisions are often like that of an idiot, Bifla said. Bifla said, because his wife cheated, he found the cheater and blackmailed him, hoping to get a large sum of compensation. Qin Zhao was speechless. His wife's lover is very rich and very powerful. Of course, he wouldn't be willing to give money to Argentero, so he bribed his teacher. After his teacher got the money, he actually helped an outsider to deal with his son-in-law, his student. When Arhen Terrell found out that his wife's cheating partner would rather give the money to his teacher than compensate him, he was furious. He went to his teacher to ask for a share of the money, but his teacher refused. Chen Zhao couldn't understand Arhen Terrell. His wife had put a dirty hat on him, but he wasn't moved at all. Instead, he was using this to get benefits. Then his teacher unilaterally announced that Arhen Terrell had betrayed the sect. At that time, Arhen Terrell didn't do anything against the sect, but he became a traitor. Isn't Arhen Terrell a little too obsessed with money? He's from a low-caste family. He's lived in the slums since he was young. To him, marrying a high-caste woman and earning a lot of money is his life goal. Under the caste system, high-caste women can't marry low-caste men. I can't believe he has such a big goal. To an outsider like Chen Zhao, the caste system was just a joke. But after he left the sect, he blackmailed that rich man for a large sum of money. This time there were no restrictions, so he didn't have to worry when he blackmailed. In the end, he still gained a lot. Because of this, he fell in love with the benefits of blackmail. In the past decade, he's been blackmailing people. Does no one care about him? That's why I said he's actually a smart person. He's like a fish in water when it comes to blackmailing. He can always avoid the big shots and doesn't leave any evidence. Before they knew it, the two had arrived before a manor. There was a wooden sign at the door with standard slang written on it. Because Chen Zhao had interacted with the gangs in LA before, he could recognize some of them. There was a graffiti of a rabbit holding a shotgun and a smile on the wooden sign. However, Chen Zhao and Bifla didn't care about such slang. What does the pattern on this sign mean? Do you know that there was a war between humans and animals in Australia? I don't know. Bifla shook his head. Due to the rapid reproduction of Australian rabbits, a large number of fields were destroyed by them. Humans began to use all kinds of methods to kill the rabbits, such as smuggling, introducing foxes, and even using human armies and fighter jets to bomb them. In the end, all of them ended in failure. The rabbits won with their terrifying reproductive ability, so the rabbits were used by the gangs later on. They compared themselves to rabbits. As long as there was suitable soil for them, they could survive and reproduce. Nothing could destroy them, and all their enemies would fail. What an arrogant declaration. Just as they were about to enter the manor, they were stopped by the gang members at the gate. The gangster who came out from the guard post had a gun at his waist without hiding it. "Stop, who are you people?" Smiling, Chen Zhao looked at the gangster. "We're here to see Mr. Arhen Terrell. You know Mr. Arhen?" The gangster looked at Chen Zhao and Bifla, noticing that they were dressed well. He wondered if they were the representatives of other gangs. In their impression, the representatives of certain gangs were all like them, dressed in suits and leather shoes. Wait, the gangster took out his walkie-talkie. "Hey, Mr. Roy, there are two people at the door. They say they want to see Mr. Arhen." Yes, I got it. "Who are you people? Why are you looking for Mr. Arhen?" "You don't need to know who we are," Chen Zhao said calmly. "As for why I'm looking for Mr. Arhen, you don't need to know either. You don't think anyone can see Mr. Arhen," the gangster said viciously. Bifla glanced at Chen Zhao. "You shouldn't waste too much time with trash like this. Say it." The gangster pulled out his gun and pointed it at Bifla's temple. "Say it again." Bifla pointed casually and a pile of ashes scattered in the wind. "Look, there's no one making noise in our ears here." "Fine, maybe you're right." Chen Zhao shrugged. The gang's headquarters didn't seem to be very well guarded. They had killed a man in public and no one else knew about it. They walked all the way to the villa, but no one stopped them. However, there were two bodyguards in suits standing in front of the villa. "Hey, who are you people? Stop right there." Bifla and Chen Zhao didn't stop. "I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me?" The two bodyguards pointed their guns at the two, but the next moment, the two turned into ashes. They pulled open the glass door and saw a group of people gathered inside. They seemed to be having a meeting. They were all spiritualists. Arhin Terrell stopped talking and frowned at the two intruders. He frowned at the two intruders. "Who are you people? Who's Arhin Terrell?" Chun Zhao scanned the crowd, because there were 3 or 4 dark-skinned Indians here. Chun Zhao couldn't recognize Arhin Terrell. Arhin Terrell looked at Chun Zhao and Bifla. "You better answer my question immediately. I'm not a patient person. Coincidentally, we're not very patient people either." Chun Zhao looked at Arhin Terrell. "You must be Arhin Terrell, right? Why are you looking for me?" "I was invited by Cliff and Ampa to help them solve their problem." "Right, the couple that you blackmailed 2 days ago. They invited you to help them solve their problem." Arhin Terrell narrowed his eyes and looked at Chun Zhao and Bifla. "Did you bring money?" "We didn't, but we still brought our sincerity. We personally came to tell you that this matter ends here." "Huh, that's very sincere." Arhin Terrell laughed loudly, and the others followed suit. Chapter 2334. Suddenly, Arhin's expression turned furious. He slammed the table in front of him. The table was smashed into pieces by Arhin Terrell. Arhin Terrell's face looked like he was wearing a mask, revealing a hideous and terrifying face that did not belong to a human. At the same time, a 3-meter-tall Dharma appeared behind him. "What gave you the courage? Do you really think that I can forgive your offense with just a few words? I'll also make you commit the great sin of blasphemy." Arhin Terrell exuded an indescribable pressure. Everyone's expressions turned solemn and respectful. "Blasphemy? Is he telling us that he's a god?" Bifla and Chun Zhao both looked at each other with contempt. At their level, they'd seen all kinds of things. The guy in front of him who had turned into such a strange appearance had the nerve to call himself a god? Wasn't the title of god too cheap for him? Seeing Chun Zhao and Bifla's disbelief, Arhin became even more furious. Arhin Terrell was even angrier. The 3-meter-tall Dharma behind him pointed at Chun Zhao. A beam of black light shot toward Chun Zhao. The black light landed on Chun Zhao, and he took a step back. Bifla stared at Chun Zhao in shock. He didn't think that Chun Zhao would be pushed back. Even if he had only taken a small step back, this small step meant a lot. This meant that Arhin Terrell could shake Chun Zhao. But Arhin's shock was no less than Bifla's. He'd used that attack to establish his dominance, so he hadn't held back at all. But his full-powered attack had only made Chun Zhao take a small step back. It wasn't reasonable, very unreasonable. The spell he used was one of the most powerful spells of Hinduism. It was a spell of Shiva. It was said that anyone hit by it would be sent flying, unless they had the power of the Ganges River. Even if a mountain were to stand in front of him, it would still be shaken. Of course, Arhin's power wasn't that great, but in the past, everyone hit by his spell would definitely be sent flying. Most of them would be corpses. Even if they didn't die, they were heavily injured. No one would only take a small step back like Chun Zhao did. Chun Zhao was the one who found it the most unbelievable, because he didn't feel any irresistible power. This power was far from being able to shake Chun Zhao. However, he was still forced back a step by this force. "You were moved by him?" Bifla asked in astonishment. "I don't know. His power is a bit strange. I wasn't pushed back by his spell. I was pushed back by this power." "Is that so?" Bifla looked at Arhin Terrell. "Try attacking me with that spell. Arrogant, let me be your opponent." A man stood up next to Arhin Terrell. He was also of Indian descent. His aura wasn't weak, only half a level lower than Arhin Terrell's. Bifla glanced at the man and said, "Small fries shouldn't disturb me." Bifla casually snapped his fingers. In an instant, the body of the man that Bifla called a small fry was instantly ignited. "Ah, save me! Save me!" The others hurried forward to help extinguish the fire. But no matter if it was normal fire or magic, they couldn't extinguish the flames on the man's body. The man only struggled for a moment before he lost his voice. He fell to the ground and twitched a few times before he stopped breathing. "How dare you kill my people?" Arhenterel was even more furious. "Kill them." The others also shared the same hatred. Under Arhenterel's command, they all pounced at Chinzhao and Baifla. Baifla snapped his fingers again. Apart from Arhenterel, everyone was ignited. Chinzhao looked at Baifla. "Did you create this spell based on a supervillain in a movie?" "I've been using this spell for a long time," Baifla said proudly. If someone had to copy someone, it would be him. However, Arhenterel wasn't so happy. The dozen or so spiritualists present were all weaker than him, but most of them were very strong. Even Arhenterel didn't dare to say that he could defeat 3 at once, not to mention everyone else. But so many of his subordinates were ignited with a snap of Baifla's fingers. This made him feel a chill rising from the soles of his feet. "Who exactly are you? I told you we're here to mediate. I won't cause trouble for that couple anymore. You can leave now." Arhenterel tried his best to remain calm. In fact, his legs were trembling. "Don't you understand what I said?" Baifla said calmly, "Use your spell to attack me." Arhenterel's expression was solemn. "Don't force me. If I use my trump card, it won't benefit any of you. If you don't attack, it won't benefit you at all. Fine. Just you wait." Arhenterel snorted. The 8-foot-tall image behind him suddenly turned into 3 heads and 6 arms. Each of the 6 arms of the Dharma idol was holding a weapon. It looked like Shiva, one of the 3 supreme gods of Hinduism. The body facing them held a black bead in its left hand. The black bead suddenly shot out a beam of black light. The black light landed on Baifla. Baifla took 3 steps back. Arhenterel and Baifla were both surprised. Arhenterel had used a lot of magic power just now. It was many times more powerful than before, but such a powerful attack only made Baifla take 3 steps back. "It's indeed a special power." Baifla patted his chest. He wasn't injured either, but he was still very interested in this power. Both Chinzhao and Baifla could feel how special this power was. It was clearly many times weaker than them, but it could shake the 2 of them. "Are there any other spells?" Baifla said. "Let me experience it." Baifla and Chinzhao just wanted to experience it, but in Arhenterel's ears, it sounded like naked humiliation. In the past, when he used this move, his enemies would either die or be injured. Chinzhao and Baifla were 2 exceptions. Arhenterel took a deep breath. The 8-foot-tall image behind him turned around. Its expression was ferocious, and its eyes glowed red. Seething fire. The attack of the 8-meter Dharma idol landed on Baifla's body, but Baifla didn't feel anything. Chapter 2335. The seething flame could make the opponent's blood boil, but Baifla remained unmoved, allowing the flames to burn its body. Be it inside or outside of his body, he couldn't feel anything. More accurately, it didn't make Baifla feel uncomfortable. Baifla himself was a master of playing with fire. Baifla shook his head. "Change to another spell. This one is too weak." Arhenterel was both embarrassed and angry. How could his magic be called too weak? But as he continued to try other spells, to his horror, he realized that the magic he'd once been proud of was completely meaningless to Chinzhao and Baifla. Arhenterel was treated as a toy by Chinzhao and Baifla. Apart from incantation, all other spells were useless against Chinzhao and Baifla. He had never encountered such an enemy before. It was so powerful that it seemed to be a different kind of creature. This kind of strength was unreasonably strong. As for the effect of moving because of him, that effect was only to make them take a step or 2 back. Boring, really boring. Baifla shook his head. "Aren't there any more interesting spells?" Arhenterel saw Baifla raise his hand. In an instant, he felt his hair stand on end. Baifla's finger was about to touch him. I have other spells." Arhenterel screamed in terror. At this moment, Bifla's finger was already pointing at him. Arhind Terrell suddenly felt the air pressure surging behind him. He twisted his neck with difficulty. He saw the scene behind. Half of the villa disappeared, leaving only the raging flames in the air. All right, Bifla withdrew his attack at the last moment. At least it did not land on Arhind Terrell. I have a powerful magic that is known to be able to destroy everything. It's called the Third Eye. Oh, the Third Eye? I've heard a lot about it. Bifla had heard of this spell before. Archon Terrell was a Shiva, a branch of Hinduism. As one of the three great gods of Hinduism, Shiva was also known as the three-eyed god of destruction. The magic third eye that Arhind Terrell mentioned was naturally Shiva's third eye. Come, let me see you open your third eye. Befora beckoned with his finger. I can't use it. Arhind Terrell looked at Bifla with a troubled expression. Are you toying with me? Bifla's tone instantly turned cold. No. I have the cultivation method for the third eye, but I can't cultivate it. Archon Terrell quickly said, I'm willing to give this magic book to the two sirs. Archon Terrell hurriedly took out the magic book he had kept for himself. Bifla flipped through it a few times and then threw it at Arhind Terrell's face. My lord, this is real. This is authentic. I didn't lie to you. Bifla said calmly, Of course I can tell if it's real or fake, but I feel that you're lying to me. The magic of Hinduism can only be practiced by believers. I'm not a believer of Hinduism. Qin Zhao picked up the magic book with interest and flipped through it, but the magic books were all written in ancient Sanskrit. Even someone with pure Indian blood wouldn't be able to understand it, let alone Chen Zhao. Bifla, why can Hinduism's magic only be practiced by believers? In Chen Zhao's impression, the magic of other religions didn't seem to be restricted by beliefs. For example, there were people in the church who practiced dark magic. There were also many outsiders who practiced holy light magic. This is a world wall that Hinduism set up. In fact, every religion can set up a world wall for themselves. It's a man-made restriction to prevent their high-end magic from flowing out. The conditions for setting up a world wall are also rather complicated. First, they have to have enough believers. Second, they have to work together with many high-end powers. Then, they have to pay some special sacrifices. Finally, they can complete the world wall. Do other religions have it? No, they did in ancient times, but most religions destroyed their world walls later on. Now, only Hinduism still has a world wall, Bifla said. Bifla said, the world wall is not suitable in the current social system. Nowadays, all the major religious systems are promoting and spreading their influence. But the world wall is the biggest obstacle. The world wall can only restrict ordinary spiritualists. If we want to break through it, it is not impossible, but it is meaningless to us. The things we have mastered have long surpassed the limits of the world wall. Arhind Terrell knew about the world barrier, and that was precisely why. When he heard Bifla say that they both had the ability to surpass the world wall's restrictions, he couldn't help but shiver. As a believer of Shiva, he was willing to take out the magic book so easily because he knew that they couldn't learn or comprehend the contents in the book. But Bifla said that they had the ability to break through the world wall. This made him panic. I'll study this book when I'm free. It's useless to you two. Trust me, Bifla said. Bifla said, your strength is enough to break through the barrier. But breaking through the barrier also requires a huge amount of resources, or even the strength of a country. Those religions can break through the barrier because they have accumulated wealth for generations. But your little bit of wealth is not worth mentioning in front of the resources needed to break through the barrier. Do we have to pay such a huge price? Qin Zhao frowned. Yes, some resources don't even exist in this world. We have to find them in other worlds. Find them in other worlds. Chen Zhao was even more surprised. Could other people go to other worlds? Of course, not directly. We have to exchange with alchemists. For example, we need a huge amount of demon gold. There isn't that much demon gold in the modern world, so we have to use alchemists' exchange spells and a huge amount of resources in the modern world to exchange for demon gold. So, this spell is completely useless. At least it's useless for you and me, Bifla said. Qin Zhao shook his head in pity. He looked at the magic book in his hand. For some reason, he just felt that this thing was good. Huh, you seem to care about this magic book. I feel that it's good. Really? You actually feel that? Looks like this magic book is indeed good. Bifla didn't disagree. Instead, he agreed with Qin Zhao. Chapter 2336. Since you've taken the spell book, then he's my trophy, Bifla said, pointing at Arhin Terrell. Him? Spoils of war? Is there something wrong with your understanding of trophies? That spell of his is very interesting. Aren't you curious as to why that spell could shake you? Qin Zhao glanced at Arhin Terrell. He was indeed curious. After all, Arhin Terrell was so weak, but he could shake Qin Zhao with a spell. What if someone else used the same spell? What if it was Bifla instead? Qin Zhao had to admit that this spell also made Qin Zhao jealous. However, he couldn't just stuff all the good stuff into his pocket. I'll study his spell, and you study the third eye spell. If we make any breakthroughs, we can share them. What do you think? Sure, Qin Zhao agreed readily. The two didn't care about Arhin Terrell's attitude at all. His personal opinion wasn't important either. Then, Qin Zhao took out his phone and called Li Pan. Okay, it's done. Li Pan didn't expect it to be over so quickly. However, thinking of Qin Zhao's strength, Li Pan felt that it was reasonable. Where's that Arhin Terrell? Is he dead or alive? He's alive now, but I'm not sure how long he can live. My friend thinks he's fun, so he brought him back, Qin Zhao said calmly. Li Pan remembered that she'd seen Bifla beside Qin Zhao before. That person didn't communicate with Qin Zhao. Even if he wasn't as scary as Qin Zhao, his status and strength wouldn't be too far off. From Qin Zhao's tone, it seemed like he didn't even have to worry about the consequences. After hanging up, Li Pan looked at Ederson, Amber, and Cliff. It's done. Done. So fast? Ederson's reaction was exactly the same as Li Pan's. It had only been an hour or so. It was done just like that? Could that guy be one of Li Pan's friends? Cliff and Amber were thinking the same thing. They didn't know who Li Pan had asked for help. However, such a short time was probably enough for a car ride. What problem could it solve? Don't worry, Li Pan said. That person has the ability. Really? He doesn't need to lie to me. I can only entrust him with a small favor. At this moment, Li Pan even somewhat regretted her refusal and unwillingness that day. Li Pan could have made Qin Zhao owe her a big favor, but in the end, she didn't get anything. Maybe that $1 million check was a fortune to her. But Li Pan wasn't stupid. She knew that $1 million check was nothing compared to a favor. Even if Qin Zhao could fulfill her most basic request, it would still be worth more than $1 million. Moreover, the third night seemed extremely dangerous. But with Qin Zhao's protection, it wasn't as dangerous as imagined. Of course, Ederson was still worried and said, Cliff, Ampa, stay here for the time being. I'll go out and ask around. Yes, thank you. It's nothing. It's not a big deal. Ederson was quite loyal. Don't worry. If there's really no way to resolve this, I can arrange for you to return to Los Angeles through other channels. After comforting Cliff and Ampa, Ederson left the motel with Li Pan. Li Pan, tell me the truth. Does that person really have the ability to resolve my friend's problem? Ederson, I know you don't have a good impression of him, but you can't deny his ability. I'm not talking about his character. I just want to know if my two friends are safe. Since he said it's resolved, then it's resolved. If you don't believe me, you can investigate it yourself. Ederson was still doubtful about Li Pan's words, so he took out his phone and dialed a number. Walter, do you know Arhin Terrell? Instantly, a hurried voice came from the other end. You did the Wahan Manor in the suburbs? What Wahan Manor? What did I do? I don't understand. If you don't want to tell me, then forget it. I won't say anything. I really don't understand what you're saying. You're still pretending. I really don't understand what you're saying. You really don't know what happened in the Wahan Manor. I don't know. What does this have to do with Arhin Terrell? That's the headquarters of a gang controlled by Arhin Terrell. But 30 minutes ago, the place was razed to the ground. Not a single living person was seen. The only things found at the scene were some incomplete limbs and a few charred corpses. There were strong traces of magic at the scene, and Arhin Terrell disappeared without a trace. The strangest thing was the reaction of the organizers of Holy Glory. It was obvious that many ordinary gang members were attacked by spiritualists and died tragically, but the organizers of Holy Glory said that it was just an ordinary gang killing. They won't interfere in this matter. When a Jerson heard Walter's words, his hair instantly stood on end. Is what you're saying true? This really has nothing to do with you. How could I have that kind of ability? That's true. But why are you asking about Arhin Terrell? I'm asking about Arhin Terrell. You've already told me everything, a Jerson said solemnly. Fine. I'm sure now that you're playing with me. With that, Walter hung up. A Jerson's mind was a bit muddled. So Li Pan was telling the truth? With just one call from Li Pan, that guy had slaughtered an entire gang? Actually, Qin Zhao was also being cursed by Zhang Tianyi. You asterisk Shoal, Zhang Tianyi scolded. Even if you did it, can't you be more discreet? Do you have to make it so everyone knows? But Baifla killed everyone. I didn't kill anyone. Chen Zhao shrugged casually. So you should be cursing Baifla. Without hesitation, Chen Zhao pushed all the blame to Baifla, who had helped him carry his daughter. While playing with Jerlin, Baifla said, I'm helping Qin Zhao, so no matter how many people I kill, it'll be on him. I'm a pacifist. I told you to stop killing, but you can't stop yourself. Celestial Master Zhang, do you believe him? Chapter 2337. Zhang Tianyi clearly didn't believe him. Baifla's words couldn't be trusted either, but it didn't mean that Chen Zhao's words could be trusted. Chen Zhao was very murderous. It was normal for Baifla to kill all the gangsters, but it would be bullshit to say that Chen Zhao had stopped him. Their circle was only so big. Everyone knew each other. I've already suppressed this, but the impact is very bad. Chen Zhao and Baifla acted as if nothing had happened. Zhang Tianyi's words went in one ear and out the other. I didn't find Arhin Terrell's body in Wahan Manor, Zhang Tianyi asked. Where did he go? Chen Zhao looked at Baifla. He was obviously trying to sell Baifla out. Zhang Tianyi looked at Baifla. Where is he? What, did someone ask you for him? Baifla asked. Not only did he ask for the person, he also asked for a magic book from me, Zhang Tianyi said. Just then, Qin Zhao and Baifla turned their heads at the same time, avoiding Zhang Tianyi's eyes. Zhang Tianyi was an old fox, just from Chen Zhao and Baifla's actions. He knew that the item and person were in their hands. I can ignore the person who asked me for the item, but I have to share the item, Zhang Tianyi said righteously. It's not like it's anything good. Do they have to abandon their principles? The person who asked me for the item is Diko Wendis, the great guardian of Shiva. Since he's here, it means that Arhin Terrell's item isn't ordinary. But you don't have to be so shameless, right? According to my investigation, ever since Arhin Terrell betrayed the Shiva religion, he has never been hunted down by the Shiva religion. Apostasy is an unforgivable crime in any region, but the Shiva religion, which has always been known for its strict enforcement of the law, actually did not pursue Arhin Terrell. It can only be said that Arhin Terrell has something on the Shiva religion, or he has a precious treasure of the Shiva religion in his hand. The Shiva religion did not dare to pursue Arhin Terrell for fear of breaking the vases, and he also used the treasure as a protective talisman. Zhang Tianyi paused and said, Shiva religion is not a small religion. It is one of the largest religions in India. It is a big religion with at least 200 million people believing in it. The treasure that can be valued by a religion of this scale is definitely not something ordinary. Chen Zhao casually tossed the book onto the table. Take it if you want. Although Chen Zhao had thrown it out casually, he was actually quite reluctant. After all, Chen Zhao still felt that this magic book was unusual. All spiritualists believed in their own feelings. Chen Zhao was no exception. He rarely regretted having such strong feelings for something. For some supernatural items that he had obtained, it was either that he already knew the pros and cons of the item, or that it was not meaningful to him at all. Zhang Tianyi picked up the magic book. Just like Bifla, he flipped through a few pages, then shook his head and tossed it back onto the table. Not this. Deka Wendis didn't want this. That I don't know. That Arhenterel only took out this magic book. Zhang Tianyi frowned. Although the content of this magic book is quite advanced magic, it is restricted by the boundary wall. Deka Wendis would not come to me specifically for this kind of thing. He didn't say what magic book he wanted. No. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. Usually, top spiritualists like them only talk to each other in private. Even if they wanted something, they would beat around the bush and would not say what it was directly. After all, the things that people like them wanted were all extremely precious. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were rare treasures. If they knew their true intentions, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't be greedy. Just like Zhang Tianyi right now. He looked like a sage in front of others. In reality, he was just a normal person with emotions and desires. He didn't even know what it was, and he was already greedy. Seems like the key is still with Arhenterel. Zhang Tianyi narrowed his eyes and looked at Chen Zhao and Bifla. Where is he? Zhang Tianyi's attitude was clearly not giving Bifla a chance to refuse. He's with my subordinates. Bifla thought for a moment and finally told Chen Zhao where Arhenterel was hiding. You didn't get anything from him? Zhang Tianyi asked. That would have to be in time, Bifla said in annoyance. I just made arrangements for him, and you came looking for me. If he knew how important Arhenterel was, he would be more careful. Take me to him, Zhang Tianyi said. Bifla could only accept Zhang Tianyi's request obediently. There was no need to say that he had to go against Zhang Tianyi or that Bifla could compete with Zhang Tianyi, whether it was in terms of mentality, status, or strength. Zhang Tianyi was still in the lead. Bifla brought Zhang Tianyi to his base in the suburbs. Chen Zhao followed them too. However, before they even got close to the base, the three felt a chaotic aura in front of them. Bifla, Zhang Tianyi, and Chen Zhao's expressions all changed. The three charged out of the car they'd been in. Bifla turned into a beam of fire and soared into the sky, charging toward the base. Chen Zhao carried little Jerlin. He wasn't flying slowly, but he wasn't fast either. At the moment, the base was already occupied by slaughter and chaos. The disciples of the fire worship sect were fighting against a group of unidentified men in black. It was also obvious that the group's strength, magic, and numbers were far greater than the disciples of the fire worship sect. This resulted in heavy casualties among the fire worship sect disciples. Only a few dozen people were still trying their best to resist the attacks of the men in black. Just then, a beam of fire descended with a rumble. Amidst the flames was Bifla, who was brimming with anger. Don't be fooled by Bifla's usual aloof and arrogant attitude. He ordered his subordinates and the people around him. However, those who truly understood him knew how protective he was. He wouldn't allow others to bully his subordinates, let alone watch them being attacked and slaughtered. Hey, he's here so quickly! Among the men in black, a tall man saw the furious Bifla in the fire and called out in a low voice, "Stop him!" The tall man ordered his subordinates to stop Bifla while he retreated alone. Two other men in black retreated with him. We've achieved our goal. There's no need to waste time with the sect of fire worship, sect's leader here. Let's go. The furious Bifla walked toward the group of men in black step by step. All of you deserve to die. Chapter 23:38. However, in the next moment, the enraged Bifla's temperature dropped instantly. Naturally, this drop in temperature was a physical drop in temperature. The black-clad men in front of him suddenly joined forces and released a terrifying cold wave. In just an instant, Bifla was frozen into a block of ice. It was not just Bifla. Half of the estate was covered in ice and snow. The temperature in the estate dropped to 0 degrees Celsius. Sect leader. When the remaining fire worship sect disciples saw their sect leader being attacked, they immediately charged toward the black-clad men with all their might. The sect leader of the fire worship sect has a bad temper, but he's so weak. Stop him. I'll go kill the sect leader of the fire worship sect. The black-clad men discussed for a moment. 2 of them stayed behind to block the fire worship sect disciples, while the rest charged toward the block of ice that Bifla had turned into. As long as they broke the block of ice, they would be able to kill the sect leader of the fire worship sect. To any spiritualist, getting rid of the sect leader of a large sect was an unparalleled honor. The fire worship sect was one of the top sects in the Central Asia. It was considered a first-rate religion in the world. Therefore, these black-clad men were already imagining the honor they would receive after killing Bifla. However, at this moment, the block of ice suddenly exploded. Countless ice shards flew in all directions. Everyone at the scene was so frightened that their expressions changed drastically. However, the strange thing was none of the fire worship sect disciples were injured by the ice shards that flew in all directions. None of them were injured, no matter how close they were to the ice shards. On the other hand, the black-clad men who were close to the ice shards had turned into beehives. Those who were further away were injured as well. Bifla's eyes were wide open, filled with indescribable fury. The temperature in the fire worship sect's estate was rising rapidly. It was not accurate to say it was rising. It was turning into a purgatory. The rage in Bifla's eyes seemed to want to burn all of his enemies to ashes. When the fire worship sect disciples saw their sect leader unleashing his invincible might, they knelt on the ground in excitement. They could feel Bifla's warmth. The flames did not harm them at all. Instead, they were healing their injuries. However, to the black-clad men, it was an unprecedented pain. Bifla could kill all of them at any moment. But he didn't. What he needed now was to vent his anger. The clothes of the men in black began to melt and stick to their skin. Let alone attacking Bifla, they couldn't even face Bifla right now. The 3 men in black, who had escaped first, were flying forward at high speed. One of the women pulled down her veil and looked in the direction of the fire worship sect's estate. At this moment, the fire worship sect's estate was engulfed in flames. Although they were a few kilometers away, they could still feel the scorching aura and terrifying pressure coming from behind them. Brad, it looks like those people won't be able to stop the sect leader of the fire worship sect for long. Fortunately, we made a move first. If we were to face the sect leader of the fire worship sect, our outcome might not be any better than those fellows. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of them. The moment the 3 men in black saw that figure, their scalps went numb. Zhang Tianyi, the #1 expert in the supernatural world. The sect leader of the fire worship sect was like a little brother to him. At this moment, Zhang Tianyi was flying in the air toward the fire worship sect's estate. However, when he saw the 3 people running over, he couldn't help but slow down. Yo! Zhang Tianyi chuckled. The expressions of the 3 men in black were unprecedentedly grim and nervous. Brad, the woman who took off her veil, softly snorted. I know. Brad also took off his veil. He deviated from his original direction and blocked Zhang Tianyi's way. Greetings, Lord Celestial Master. Zhang Tianyi stopped as well. He looked in another direction and saw 2 graceful figures flying past him. TSK. What a pity. I prefer to fight young and beautiful girls. Jean Tiany had a regretful expression on his face. Lord Celestial Master, I know I'm no match for you. However, please stop for the time being. Since Bifla wants to spare your life, don't make a move. Just obediently surrender. Lord Celestial Master also has times where he miscalculates. We're here not because the sect leader of the fire worship sect wants to spare our lives. It's because he doesn't have the ability to keep us here. We're leaving openly in front of him. Jean Tiany laughed mockingly. You? Leaving openly in front of Bifla? Aren't you overestimating yourselves? If Bifla isn't willing, none of you will be able to escape. The sect leader of the fire worship sect is only SOZO. If he really had the ability, he would have caught up to us by now. He didn't chase us because he's currently transforming into a demon. He doesn't want me to see him losing control. At the same time, he doesn't want to kill you because he lost control. It's not that he doesn't have the ability to chase us. If he doesn't even know Bifla's strength, how can he escape from him? Lord Celestial Master, do you know that I'm holding you back now? Brad said with a smile. My attitude is the same. Unless I'm willing, those two girls won't be able to escape from me. Then why did you let them go? Because there's an even worse fellow waiting for them behind. An even worse fellow? Is there anyone more terrifying than Lord Celestial Master in this world? I don't know if he's scarier than me, but he's definitely everyone's nightmare. Jean Tiany said with a smile, All right, you've delayed for so long. It's about time to show your abilities. Oh, Senna, there's another aura in front. The two masked women looked at the figure in front. It was a man carrying a child. He had an Asian face. Kill him. Carrying little Jerlin. Chun Zhao strolled toward the sect of Fire's base, seeing the two men in black charging toward him. Chun Zhao held little Jerlin with his left hand and reached out with his right. Just then, a woman had already charged before Chun Zhao. She was very fast, but no matter how fast she was, she couldn't be faster than Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao reached out and grabbed, but Chun Zhao realized that his hand was empty. The woman's body actually passed through Chun Zhao. She didn't turn into energy. Instead, she turned into an incorporeal body. Chun Zhao was surprised. He didn't expect the woman to be incorporeal, and he couldn't attack her at all. The moment the woman passed through Chun Zhao, she chopped at the back of his head with her hand. But her attack was also useless against Chun Zhao. Nicole! I know. The two women were shocked. They didn't expect their attacks to be unable to hurt Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao turned around and punched at the woman behind him. But Chun Zhao's punch also missed. What's going on? Chun Zhao didn't expect that even his punch couldn't hit the woman. Chapter 23:39. This time, Chun Zhao gathered the power of the world and punched. But it still missed again. This woman couldn't be attacked at all. But her attacks could hit Chun Zhao again and again. This made Chun Zhao very unhappy. Nicole, attack the girl in his arms, Asuna called from afar. Nicole immediately turned to attack Jerlin in Chun Zhao's arms. Chun Zhao was instantly enraged, but he still couldn't do anything to Nicole. For Jerlin's safety, he could only retreat temporarily. At the same time, a black veil covered Nicole. But the result still disappointed Chun Zhao. After the black veil fell, Nicole still stood where she was unharmed. She hadn't been swallowed by the dark lava. Since the enemy could change targets, couldn't he? Since he couldn't do anything to this woman, called Nicole, he'd change targets. Chun Zhao suddenly charged at Asuna. Chun Zhao was carrying Jerlin, so he couldn't move at full speed. But he was confident that he was fast enough. However, Chun Zhao's fist missed again. The moment Chun Zhao's fist missed, he immediately retreated. Damn! What kind of spell did these two women use? He couldn't be hurt at all. Didn't that mean he was invincible? Nicole, we still have 30 seconds. If we can't end the battle in 30 seconds, we should retreat, Asuna said in a low voice. No need. Just 10 seconds. With that, Nicole slashed through the air. A palm print landed on Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao immediately felt a wave of power flow into his body. In an instant, his magic power seemed to have stopped flowing. At the same time, he fell from a dozen meters in the air. Qin Zhao hurriedly steadied himself and tried his best to protect Zhilin in his arms. But Nicole's attack came again. Qin Zhao panicked too. He stomped heavily on the ground. The ground was shattered by his stomp and gravel flew everywhere. But just then Asuna, who was far away, dodged the flying gravel in a panic. As Qin Zhao dodged Nicole's attack, he also noticed Asuna's dodging. This doesn't make sense. When he attacked her just now, she clearly ignored all his attacks. She was the same as Nicole. Why was it that she was in such a sorry state just because of the scattered gravel? Qin Zhao was confused, but since she had dodged, it meant that she was not immune to damage. Qin Zhao's retreating colleague punched the ground again. Once again, countless gravel splattered everywhere. But the strange thing was that Osena didn't dodge again. What was going on? Why didn't it work this time? But just then, Qin Zhao realized that Nicole, who had been attacking him, had actually retreated. In that instant, Qin Zhao's thoughts cleared up. At the same time, only one of them could be absolutely immune to any damage. However, the other person was not immune to the damage. There was some kind of connection between them. Nicole, let's go. Osena saw that Qin Zhao had tested them twice in a row and knew that Qin Zhao had found out their secret. It was no longer a question of whether they could get rid of Qin Zhao. Instead, it was a question of whether they could leave. If they delayed too long, once Baifla and Zhang Tianyi caught up, they really wouldn't be able to escape. Although the two of them had special abilities, it didn't mean that they were confident that they could defeat Baifla and Zhang Tianyi. Nicole glared at Qin Zhao and then turned to leave. But now Qin Zhao was annoyed. No one had ever been able to come and go as they pleased in front of him. Qin Zhao looked at Nicole and Osena's backs. Unhurriedly, he picked up a stone and aimed it in the direction that Nicole and Olsen had escaped. Pop! The stone shot at Nicole, but it missed. The stone hit the forest in front of Nicole. In an instant, all the plants on the branch collapsed. It was as if a cannonball had pierced through the entire line. This time it was Nicole and Osena's turn to explode. Such terrifying, destructive power. The two couldn't help but look at Qin Zhao behind them. Qin Zhao was still holding little Zhilin. With the other hand, he flicked his fingers in their direction. Guess who I'll shoot this time? The two women stared at Qin Zhao in fear. If Qin Zhao had shot one of them with a special ability, they would all be unscathed. But if Qin Zhao had shot the one without special powers, he would have been killed. The one who was shot would definitely die. Imagine what it would be like to be shot by a sniper bullet. Just the airflow from a sniper bullet's trajectory could cripple a person's limbs. If it hit any other part of the body other than the limbs, it was almost certain death. On the other hand, Qin Zhao's pebble was many times stronger than a sniper rifle's bullet. Just then, Nicole said, "Sir, do you believe that the moment you attack my sister or I will have enough time to kill the girl in your arms?" Qin Zhao flicked his finger hard. Pop! Boom! Amidst the terrifying sound waves, there was an unparalleled impact. However, the stone missed again. But this lethality still scared Nicole and Asuna. This time, Qin Zhao grabbed a handful of stones from the ground. Nicole and Ursina's nerves were taut. "Papa, shoot that bad woman." Zhilin suddenly pointed at Osena. Why? Because I saw a shadow run onto her, Zhilin said. Shadow? What kind of shadow? It ran onto that bad woman again. Zhilin pointed at Nicole. "Darling, how did you know?" "I saw it," Zhilin said. "What kind of shadow?" Qin Zhao asked. Zhilin had the protection of a guardian angel, so she could also see things that Qin Zhao couldn't. Qin Zhao already knew about this. Jerlin had also awakened the Nirvana magic. Over the past 2 days, Qin Zhao could feel Jerlin's magic growing in his body. This bit of magic was very weak for a regular spiritualist, but Jerlin was only a little over a year old. At least among children of the same age, not to mention those who had not awakened. Even those who had awakened might not have as much magic power as little Jerlin. Like a shadow on the ground, Jerlin said. Qin Zhao was stunned. He couldn't see the shadow moving between the two women like Jerlin had said. But under the two women's feet, one had a shadow and the other didn't. A smile appeared on Qin Zhao's face. Nicole and Osena immediately felt that something was wrong. Their biggest secret had been completely exposed, and the person who would truly see through their secret was a baby who hadn't weaned yet. Of course, if Jerlin knew what they were thinking, she would definitely retort loudly, "I'm weaned." Chapter 2340. But no matter what Jerlin thought or what they thought, Qin Zhao just wanted to kill them. Qin Zhao only wanted to kill them now. Nico and Asuna knew that Qin Zhao's next attack would definitely kill them. Just then, 4 metal discs suddenly appeared in the sky. The 4 discs were all over 3 meters in diameter. All of them appeared very abruptly without any warning. Qin Zhao didn't notice them either. Qin Zhao suddenly had a bad feeling. The 4 discs suddenly shot out 4 beams of light. The 4 beams all carried powerful water, earth, fire, and wind elements. Oh no! Qin Zhao suddenly picked up Jerlin and turned his back. At the same time, he erected a black screen on the black lava. But the screen was instantly penetrated. Qin Zhao picked up Jerlin and ran. The 4 beams of light still chased after him. Leaving 4 ditches in the ground, they swept past. Qin Zhao tossed out the stones in his hand casually. Countless stones hit the 4 discs. The discs clanked, but they weren't damaged. However, under the impact of the pebbles, the 4 metal discs spun in the air like gyroscopes. The 4 beams of light also lost control and deviated. The surrounding ground was left with spiral-shaped ditches. At this moment, the 4 metal discs gradually disappeared in midair. When Qin Zhao looked at Nico and Asuna again, he realized that they'd disappeared too. Ran. No, they couldn't be that fast. No matter how fast they ran, could they leave Qin Zhao's sensing range instantly? The 2 women were definitely nearby, but they were extremely special. Qin Zhao couldn't lock onto them. This was probably related to their strange attack immunity spell. Since he couldn't sense them, he couldn't tell who was real and who was fake. Where did that guy come from? I don't know. I've never heard of him. Good thing we avoided his eyes and ears. Otherwise, we'd be in big trouble. How long do we have to hide here? Asuna looked up at Qin Zhao in the distance. We can hide for as long as we want. Why isn't he leaving? Nico also looked in Qin Zhao's direction. The 2 of them were currently using telepathy to communicate. Because they were sisters and had a very special relationship, they didn't even need to exchange glances to know each other's thoughts. Qin Zhao searched the surroundings repeatedly, but he still found nothing. Suddenly, Qin Zhao's eyes narrowed. He thought of an idea. Qin Zhao grabbed a stone slab from the ground. This stone slab weighed at least a few hundred kilograms. Then, Qin Zhao threw it heavily. Hoo! In an instant, all the vegetation along the path of the stone slab was instantly flattened. Everything in front of him suddenly became clear, and all the obstacles disappeared. Even the bulging mound was flattened in an instant. The power of this stone slab was many times stronger than that of the pebble from before. The effect it could produce was naturally extraordinary. The stone slab left a 3-meter wide path in its path. As for how far they had flown, it was basically impossible to estimate. Anyway, there was no end in sight. Nicole and Asuna immediately covered their mouths. They did not dare to make any noise. But looking at the path that was just inches away, they still broke out in a cold sweat. If Qin Zhao moved another 3 meters to the left, they would be hit by the flying path of the stone slab. But this was not Chen Zhao's last test. He was forcing them to come out. Chen Zhao picked up another big rock. It was just as big as the previous one. Similarly, he chose another direction and threw it. Another path was opened. The large rocks flew until they disintegrated and lost their destructive power. But this kind of terrifying destructive power still made Nicole and Asna terrified. Only then did Chen Zhao use the power of one hand. He still held little Jerlin in his arms. Then he kept repeating the same action. Soon, Chen Zhao had gone one round. There were only a few sparse patches of plants in the surroundings. Nicole and Ursana broke out in cold sweat. They had already experienced Chen Zhao's terror up close. This guy was simply a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. In just 10 minutes, Chen Zhao had turned the small forest into a wasteland. Chen Zhao glanced at the grass that was neither too big nor too small. A smile appeared on his face. The two women had either died under his sweep or were dead. Otherwise, he would be hiding in the bushes. Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry now. He was like a cat chasing a mouse. At that moment, the 4 metal discs that had disappeared reappeared. He attacked Chen Zhao from behind. This time, Chen Zhao was prepared, although he wasn't sure where the metal discs were hidden. However, when they appeared, he could immediately sense it. So, as soon as they appeared, Chen Zhao charged at the 4 metal discs. Bang! Chen Zhao smashed a metal disc with a punch. At the same time, Nicole and Osena, who were hiding in the bushes, immediately ran away. Chen Zhao also noticed Nico and Asna. Chen Zhao hesitated for a moment. Should he continue to destroy other metal discs? Or stop Nicole and Ursana? In that instant of hesitation, the owners of the 4 metal plates seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. The other 3 metal discs that were not destroyed immediately disappeared. Chen Zhao wanted to keep the remaining 3 metal discs, but he failed in the end. Suddenly, a cloud of fire spread from the horizon. From the cloud of fire, a fireball landed on the ground, blocking Nicole and Asna. The moment the fireball landed, a ring of fire ignited on the ground. It enveloped everyone within it. Bifla's body slowly emerged from the flames. This time, Nicole and Asna were completely in despair. "Thank you," Bifla said coolly, glancing at Chen Zhao. "I didn't kill them." Chen Zhao nodded with a smile. Of course, he wouldn't admit that it wasn't that he didn't want to kill them. It was just that he hadn't found the chance. Don't be careless. These 2 women use a strange spell. One of them can ignore all attacks and can switch at any time. Bifla glanced at Nicole and Asna. He lifted 2 fingers and shot out 2 death rays. 2 death rays shot toward Nicole and Asna at the same time. Poof! The death ray pierced through Asna's body and blood splattered. However, Nicole stood there unscathed. Really? Bifla was also shocked. Even though he was knowledgeable, he'd never seen such a spell. Bifla didn't kill them. He'd already vented enough. He was still angry, but he could control it now. Chapter 2341. Just then a person fell from the sky. Everyone looked over and realized that it was Brad. After Brad, Zhang Tianyi landed slowly. Brad wasn't fatally injured, but his face was swollen. Zhang Tianyi, on the other hand, was gasping for breath. He put his hands on his waist and looked like he was about to cry. "You two are really too much. You don't understand this old man at all. This guy is really hard to deal with. This old man spent a great deal of effort and used all of my means to take him down. I almost lost my life." On the ground, Brad wanted to cry too, because Zhang Tianyi had indeed attacked more than 100 times. But each time he was slapped. Simply put, Zhang Tianyi had slapped him more than 100 times. Apart from that, he didn't use any other spells. Every time Brad used a spell, it didn't matter what it was used for or whether it was effective on Zhang Tianyi. Either way, he would get a slap. Then Zhang Tianyi would curse him. Brad believed that Zhang Tianyi was tired from beating people and thirsty from cursing. However, did he have the ability to subdue him after expending a great deal of effort? The injuries on his face were all caused by Zhang Tiany's hands-on treatment. After this battle, he finally understood how terrifying Zhang Tiany was and the difference between him and Zhang Tiany. Zhang Tiany's strength was the kind that made no sense at all. If he wanted to hit someone, he didn't care what techniques you had. He didn't care what extraordinary power you had as long as you had a pair of palms. He could beat you so hard that even your mom couldn't recognize you. Zhang Tiany was just that unreasonable. He wouldn't even use spells against you. No matter how many tricks you had, he would just slap you. So when Brad heard Zhang Tiany's crying, he didn't feel any pain. He only felt wronged and cursed inwardly. As for Chun Zhao and Baifla, they just looked at Zhang Tiany expressionlessly. Their only reply was a chuckle. Celestial Master Grandpa is so shameless. You beat him up and he's still complaining. Shameless, shameless. Little Jerlin made a face at Zhang Tiany. Baby, come, let Grandpa hug you. Cheerfully, Zhang Tiany ran to Qin Zhao and reached out to take Jerlin. No, Grandpa Heavenly Master stinks. Look at your father. He's not much cleaner than me. I don't want you to hug me. Humph. Little Jerlin nestled in Qin Zhao's arms, still making faces with her cute little face. Blade's eyes flashed. He saw Nicole and Ursana not far away. His heart sank to the bottom. Did the two of them not escape? That's not good at all. He had originally thought that he could hold Zhang Tiany back. Ursina and Nicole would be able to escape. Moreover, he also believed that his plan had succeeded. Who would have thought that Asana and Nicole would still be stopped here? Baifla was held back by the cannon fodder, and Zhang Tiany was being held up by him. Was it the man carrying the little girl who stopped Asana and Nicole? Who was that guy? How could he stop Asana and Nicole? Others might not know, but how could Brad not? Asana and Nicole were a handful. Now, Zhang Tiany and Baifla had also arrived. It was impossible for them to leave now. Suddenly, Zhang Tiany snorted and looked up at the sky. The sunlight was suddenly blocked by something. Qin Zhao also looked up. He realized that metal discs had appeared in the sky one after another. These were the same discs that had attacked Qin Zhao before. It was just that the number this time was many times more than the previous ones. They were densely packed and neatly arranged. There could be hundreds of them. I was attacked by a few of them just now. What are they? Who's? Qin Zhao asked. Zhang Tiany and Baifla were confused too. They seemed to be guessing who did it. These metal discs all emitted a powerful elemental aura. Moreover, to be able to control so many metal discs at the same time, the magic level must be extraordinary. So many metal discs hovered in the air, but they did not attack them immediately. But this confrontation was actually a threat to the three. Unfortunately, Chun Zhao, Zhang Tiany, and Baifla, whom the mastermind had threatened, were all people who would not be threatened. The three's pride, or rather, their arrogance, was so similar. Cowardly scoundrel. Zhang Tiany snorted and stepped forward. Zhang Tiany was serious this time. Zhang Tiany formed a seal with his hands and shouted, Star Lord Huang, Feng Shuzhang, Bailey Piaoxing, Punishing Heaven's Sword, King of Zhou, break! All of a sudden, the hundreds of metal discs were pieced together. The chaotic elemental aura suddenly merged into one. It turned into an indestructible metal barrier. Zhang Tiany pointed at the metal barrier. The metal barrier looked as if it had been stripped of its scales. The metal plates broke off the metal barrier piece by piece and fell to the ground. Qin Zhao did not know Taoism, but he knew that Zhang Tiany had just chanted a Taoist mantra. Of course, this was mainly because Fei Lai had been fascinated by feng shui and had searched everywhere for feng shui books. Qin Zhao had used his identity to obtain some. At the same time, he had also obtained some Taoist books. The mantra that Zhang Tiany had just chanted really appeared in the Ziwei Do Shu Wang log. Legend had it that feng shui originated from the era of King Wu of Zhou. It was said that Jiang Zia had created it when King Wu conquered Zhou. The Ziwei star was also known as the Master of Dipper. Therefore, when it came to feng shui, most people would mention the Ziwei star lord. However, Qin Zhao was more concerned about the fact that Zhang Tianyi had not used an ordinary spell. Zhang Tianyi didn't use any huge amount of transcendence energy. He just stepped on Mount Sumeru and pinched the stars. It looked like the tricks of a charlatan, but the seemingly indestructible metal barrier was forcibly peeled off by him. Of course, neither friend nor foe would think that the old man was a swindler. Fuck, show yourself. The Big Dipper, the Six Directions, the Ziwei Star, the Nangong Palace, the fire. Zhang Tianyi once again made a hand seal. This time, a small flame burst out from Zhang Tianyi's fingertip. The seemingly insignificant flame spun a few times in the air and turned into a flaming dragon. The flaming dragon crashed headfirst into the metal barrier. With a loud boom, all the metal discs shattered and flew everywhere. At the same time, it kicked up a huge sandstorm. Amidst the dust and sand, a huge figure appeared. If not for the sandstorm, he probably would not have shown himself so easily. Come out. You've already been exposed. There's no point in hiding anymore. Chapter 2342. The figure hiding behind the sand finally stopped hiding. It wasn't exactly generous, but at least it was facing it calmly. It was a giant dragon with a huge body and a terrifying draconic might. It also radiated a terrifying magic power. However, this dragon was very special because its entire body was covered in metal armor. Even its wings were covered in thick metal. This dragon's size had reached the level of a dragon's father. Its magic aura was also extremely strong. But what the three cared about was the rippling elements on its body. Usually, dragons were single elemental. Occasionally, there would be dual elemental dragons. However, this metal dragon was quadruple elemental. Qin Zhao was surprised. Was this metal dragon the culprit behind the attack on the fire-worshipped sex base? He had to admit that this metal dragon was very powerful. But did he really think he could fight Zhang Tianyi head-on? What a joke. Even Qin Zhao wasn't confident. He thought that he was stronger than Zhang Tianyi in terms of combat power. But at their level, combat power wasn't necessarily the deciding factor in a battle. Who knew what kind of spell Zhang Tianyi would throw at him? It was even possible that he could be suppressed directly. As soon as the metal dragon appeared in front of him, it either had a trick up its sleeve or was stupid. However, Qin Zhao really couldn't imagine how the metal dragon could escape. Putting Zhang Tianyi aside, Qin Zhao and Baifla wouldn't just stand by and watch. Zhang Tianyi also frowned. The metal dragon's aura seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember. "I've seen you before," Zhang Tianyi said, pointing at the metal dragon. "Aft, it's my honor to be remembered by the Celestial Master." Even the proud WIRMS had to put away their pride and arrogance in front of Zhang Tianyi. Most of the giant dragons viewed other races, including humans, as mere ants. However, they were facing Zhang Tianyi, an ant who could crush most dragons to death. "Don't talk. Let me think. I can definitely remember. Where did I meet you?" Zhang Tianyi lowered his head in deep thought, his expression serious. The metal dragon wasn't in a hurry either. It let Zhang Tianyi's mind wander. Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi clapped his hands. "I remember now. The genius of the giant dragon clan, Udal Loken." The metal dragon grinned. "You finally remembered, Celestial Master. Fuck! How did you get yourself into this state? Back then, you were still a little handsome dragon. Because of you, my great Celestial Master." The metal dragon let out a horrifying laugh. Baifla and Qin Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi at the same time. Did they misunderstand? Or did this big guy use the wrong words? Don't make it sound so ambiguous. We've only met once, and it was 120 years ago. That's right, 120 years ago. During my dragon race's ancestral dragon's birthday, you followed your master to my race's Dragon Island. Then, you defeated me and used my name as a genius to achieve your own accomplishments. Wait, let me sort out my thoughts. I remember that you were the one who challenged me. Why does it seem like I'm using you? Moreover, I remember that we got along quite well in the following days. Isn't it too late to sort out who was in the right and who was in the wrong? Udal Loken sneered at Zhang Tianyi. In order to defeat you and wash away the humiliation you've inflicted on me, I've been working hard. But no matter how hard I try, I can only live in your shadow. Even now, I possess the power of the Dragon Father, but you're still like a mountain that's always pressing down on me. Then should I say sorry? I'm joking with you. Udal Loken suddenly laughed. I can't even count the number of times I've been defeated by others in my life. How can I remember it just because you defeated me? But I'm serious about pursuing power. Udal Loken's tone suddenly changed. It's very uncomfortable to face you here, but since I've been exposed, I can only fight. You're not just facing Celestial Master Zhang. The flames on Bafla's body burned again. Oh, I remember now. And you, an ant. Bafla soared into the sky and punched at Udal Loken. At the same time, a terrifyingly high temperature rose. The metal on Udal Loken's body seemed to be melting. Wow, it's hot. Jerlin covered her head with her hands. Even from a few hundred meters away, she could still feel the heat. Zhang Tianyi casually cast a small spell on Jerlin. Wow, so comfortable. Grandpa Celestial Master, give me another one. Chen Zhao's attention was on Bafla. Udal Loken also seemed to be unable to endure the terrifying flames. He looked up and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at Bafla. However, his breath could only travel less than 10 meters before it was suppressed by Bafla's flames. Dragons of all attributes could spit dragon breath, which would also be mixed with their own attributes. It could be said that all dragons were experts at playing with fire. But today, Udal Loken met an enemy who knew how to play with fire even better than him. Bafla. Udal Loken also did not expect his dragon breath to be suppressed by Bafla. Such pure flames. Udal Loken murmured. Udal Loken muttered to himself. Bifla's flames erupted with even more terrifying power. In an instant, Udal Loken was swallowed by the sea of fire. Zhang Tianyi, I like you. Those were Udal Loken's last words. Bafla stopped his attack and turned to look at Qin Zhao in surprise. Zhang Tianyi, that's a male dragon. Fuck, that guy's a fake. He's just messing with us. Zhang Tianyi stomped his feet in anger. Bafla calmed himself down and returned his attention to the battlefield. Engulfed by the sea of fire, most of Udal Loken's body gradually melted. However, the only thing that melted was his metal body. He did not find Udal Loken's flesh and blood. Was it really a fake? Udal Loken only had a metal head left. I've been discovered. What a pity. But Zhang Tianyi, I meant what I said just now. I'm a gay dragon. Zhang Tianyi's face kept twitching, but he could not do anything to this guy. It was useless even if he destroyed the metal head. It was just a remote-controlled shell. Chapter 2343. Not many people in the world dared to tease Zhang Tianyi. Clearly, Udal Loken didn't plan on fighting Zhang Tianyi head-on. Also, because he didn't come with his real body, he didn't have any worries. He could tease Zhang Tianyi without restraint. Even if Zhang Tianyi stomped his feet in anger, there was nothing he could do. Qin Zhao and Bifla watched from the side. Even though Bafora hated Udal Loken to the core, Bafora didn't care. But there was nothing he could do. Qin Zhao was even more curious about how this dragon called Udal Loken could control such a metal body. In terms of strength alone, the controlled steel WIRM was not weaker than ordinary WIRMS. In fact, it was much stronger. It was just a puppet that was being controlled. Yet it already possessed such strength. Then how strong was its real body? Of course. Chun Zhao was an outsider in this conflict. At least before Baifla asked him for help personally, he was an outsider, even though Chen Zhao had participated in this battle. Udal Loken glanced at his subordinates. I'll leave them in Celestial Master Zhang's hands for now. Please take good care of them. I'll take them back soon. Huh, you want to take them back? That depends on whether you have the ability. Baifla grinned hideously at Udal Loken's almost melted metal head. Trust me, Udal Loken said confidently. Before long, you'll return them to me, personally. Suddenly, a beam of red light pierced through Brad's head. Brad was still in shock, but the next moment his soul had already left his body. He didn't even know what had happened until he died. And the person who killed him was Baifla. Baifla pointed at Nico and Asuna. At the same time, he looked at the remaining metal heads. Tell me, why do you think we'll return them to you? In Chun Zhao's impression, Baifla had always been very calm. Until today, all of Baifla's mania and anger had been revealed. Zhang Tianyi didn't expect Baifla to be so direct. Shouldn't they keep them alive? That way, he could get the necessary information from them. But Baifla killed one just like that. Judging from his actions, he seemed to want to kill the remaining two. Zhang Tianyi felt that it was inappropriate. But today, Baifla was the person involved. He was most qualified to decide the life and death of these two women. Therefore, Zhang Tianyi did not speak. Udal Loken said nothing more. He didn't expect Baifla to respond so forcefully. He was afraid that if he said another word, Baifla would really kill Nicole and Asuna. Blade was his right-hand man. But in the end, they were not as important as Nicole and Asuna. Although Brad's death was regrettable, it was still barely acceptable. But once Nicole and Asuna died, then his plan would be completely ruined. Therefore, he did not want to provoke Baifla any further. Looks like they're really important to you. A cruel smile appeared on Baifla's face. It should be because of their special magic constitutions. It seems that I really need to make good use of them. The metal skull finally melted completely, and he remained silent for the last few minutes. Chun Zhao and Zhang Tianyi looked at Baifla. These two captives belonged to Baifla. Their lives were also decided by Baifla. Baifla, are you going to kill them? Zhang Tianyi asked. He was also quite interested in Nicole and Asuna's magic. After all, absolute immunity to other people's attacks was almost unimaginable. Even Chun Zhao, who had the best physique and defense among the three, did not dare to say that he could be immune to all attacks. At least, if there was a strong enough magic attack, it could break through Chun Zhao's defense. But Nicole and Asuna were different. They could make any one of them absolutely immune. According to that dragon's train of thought, he definitely wants us to pry open their mouths. If I continue with this train of thought, I might fall into his trap. So you're going to kill them now. Baifla lowered his head and thought for a while. No, I'm more curious about what they can tell me. I also want to know what that dragon said. In the end, we'll personally return them to him. Zhang Tianyi also wanted to know why they'd return the two of them. Did he have something on them? Was he confident that this could threaten Chun Zhao and Baifla? Or did he have the ability? Or was he using normal people to threaten them? It didn't seem feasible. Since guessing won't work, we'll pry open their mouths first. We're just guessing here. What can we get? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. This kind of brain-wasting work was really not suitable for him. No need, Asuna said honestly. Whatever you want to know, we can tell you as long as we know it. How can we do that? Chen Zhao said. Intelligence without torture might not be true. Both Asuna and Nicole stared at Chen Zhao angrily. Chen Zhao's words were too vicious. He was going to force them to their deaths. It's just a joke. Don't be so serious. We're here to kidnap Arhen Terrell under Master Udal's orders. Where's Arhen Terrell? Where did you hide him? I don't know. We're only in charge of delaying and destroying. Someone else will naturally complete the kidnapping. Everyone was obviously not satisfied with this answer. Then, tell me the dragon's real goal. To become a god. Fuck! Why is it this super stupid goal again? Chen Zhao cursed. Papa, you can't curse. Zhang Tianyi and Baifla glanced at Chen Zhao. What kind of father are you? You're cursing in front of kids. Other than that, don't you have any other deeper motives? Like maintaining world peace? Nicole and Asana both looked at Zhang Tianyi as if he was an idiot. Then what are the specific steps? The three could actually easily accept Asana and Nicole's goal, because there really had been gods in this world before. Thus, it was theoretically possible to become a god. Why do you think we should know? You're his subordinates and should be an important part of his plan. Why shouldn't we know? We can't understand Master Yudal's great ambition. Becoming a god isn't a great ambition, Chen Zhao complained. It's also very childish. 9 Heavens, Divine King. Chapter 2344. After this, Baifla stayed behind to deal with the aftermath. After all, the sect of fire had been attacked, and many disciples had died. He didn't have time to care about anything else. The most important thing was to take care of the remaining disciples. Chun Zhao and Zhilin would only cause trouble if they stayed. Then Baifla chased them away. This wasn't a joke. The father and daughter stayed in the sect of fire for 10 minutes. Baifla went berserk. Chun Zhao wanted to help take care of the injured. After all, being a doctor was his main job. He was confident that he could take care of the injured. In the end, he imbued vitality into one of the injured. The injury healed quickly, but it was too effective. The person Chen Zhao had infused with vitality had been injured in the back. In the end, because of the excessive vitality, he grew another arm on his back. Baifla almost fainted from anger. On one hand, it was because Chen Zhao treated randomly. On the other hand, Chen Zhao's treatment method was too extravagant. It was even wasteful. Have you ever seen someone donate to an orphanage only to end up in a bank? Chen Zhao's treatment method was similar. Zhilin was much worse than Chen Zhao. She ran around the half-destroyed sect of Fire's base. When she saw the injured lying on the ground, she ran up to them and poked their wounds. You even used a very innocent tone to ask me if it hurts? Was this something a human would do? The injured knew that Zhilin was the daughter of their sect leader's friend. Even if she had tears in her eyes, she shouldn't be angry. Chun Zhao felt helpless too. He really wanted to help. In the end, the father and daughter were chased out of the sect of Fire's base. When they returned to the city, it was already midnight. Compared to a sleepless city like Los Angeles, Istanbul was much quieter. Of course, Istanbul's historical value was countless times that of Los Angeles. Under the night sky in Istanbul, there were always countless spiritualists moving about. The strongest spiritualists in the world were gathered here. But no one came to cause trouble for the father and daughter. They returned to the hotel, successfully. Chun Zhao comforted Zhilin and put her to sleep. On the other hand, Chun Zhao stood on the balcony of the suite and absorbed the yin-yang qi. Suddenly, he saw a few spiritualists chasing each other on the road outside the hotel. Upon closer inspection, he recognized 2 of them. They seemed to be Cliff and Ampa. They were the ones being chased. The 6 spiritualists chased after them. Upon closer inspection, the spiritualists chasing after them seemed to be Indians. The 6 spiritualists were clearly stronger than Cliff and Ampa. However, they seemed to have some misgivings, so they did not use any offensive methods. Every time he attacked, he would use binding and control spells. Cliff and Ampa, on the other hand, were barely able to resist. But looking at the situation, it wouldn't be long before he was defeated and captured. Chun Zhao considered whether he should attack or how he should do it. At this moment, an extremely loud gunshot resounded through the night sky. A spiritualist fell to the ground. Chun Zhao's vision was excellent, so he could see clearly. The spiritualist's neck was pierced through, and the powerful penetrating force, coupled with the airflow, almost completely broke the spiritualist's neck. Raising an eyebrow, Qin Zhao searched the surroundings. Looking in the direction of the bullet's trajectory, he saw a sniper on the rooftop of a tall building. It was at least 2,000 meters away from the scene. All the spiritualists present were terrified. They didn't have the ability to stop bullets. Now, they had to face a sniper hiding in the dark. Cliff and Ampa also lay on the ground, not daring to get up. The sniper's first shot was to attack the people chasing after them. But who knew what his real goal was? Just then, there was a second gunshot. This time it didn't hit anyone. However, it left an extremely exaggerated bullet hole in front of the Indians. The area around the bullet hole seemed to have been corroded by something, leaving a bull-sized hole. They're spiritualists. Everyone, raise your shields, one of the Indians shouted. At the same time, he rolled on the ground and hid behind a roadblock. Right now, the sniper in the dark was observing the scene through the scope of his sniper rifle. Tisk, tisk, too slow. I only noticed now, the sniper said proudly. Okay, stop talking. Finish it quickly. Don't drag it out. His partner's voice came from the sniper's earpiece. Got it. The sniper switched to regular bullets this time. He'd used magic bullets for the second shot just to make the spiritualists think that he would continue using magic bullets. When they used their magic shields, it was time for the sniper to harvest. Magic bullets were very different from regular sniper rifle bullets. Magic bullets had many special additional effects. Regular bullets, on the other hand, were much simpler, pure physical damage. If the necromancers were hiding behind some obstacles, using magic bullets would be the most effective. The various attributes of magic bullets could help the sniper destroy those obstacles. But the magic properties of magic bullets weren't strong, so they could easily be blocked by magic shields. Everything had its pros and cons, and that was the disadvantage of magic bullets. But this time, the sniper switched to regular bullets. Of course, it was normal compared to magic bullets. But compared to real ordinary small caliber bullets, it wasn't the case. Because he wasn't using small caliber sniper bullets. It was super large armor-piercing bullets. And he wasn't using an ordinary mid-range sniper rifle either. It was a long-range sniper rifle. In the military, super large caliber bullets were mostly described as cannons. With the effect of a sniper rifle and a large caliber armor-piercing bullet, it could basically penetrate about 60 centimeters of concrete within its range. Bang! A sniper rifle shot directly blew up the head of a spiritualist hiding behind a concrete barricade. It wasn't accurate to say that it was a headshot. It was more like a headshot. The spiritualist thought that he was protected by a magic shield and a barricade, so he should be safe. But the power of the sniper rifle taught him a lesson. Beautiful. The sniper didn't care that he was in a sniper position. He shouted loudly and excitedly and couldn't help but kiss his rifle again. Don't waste time there. Finish the battle quickly. Got it. Don't rush me. The sniper then aimed at the third spiritualist. He was about to pull the trigger when the sniper suddenly had a very uncomfortable feeling. It was the feeling of being watched by others. The sniper immediately rolled and hid in the shadows. At the same time, he tried to determine where the feeling of being watched was coming from. Through the scope, the sniper finally found where the gaze was coming from. It was in the hotel next to the position where he was sniping. A man stood on the balcony of one of the suites. The man had been watching everything on the battlefield, and at the same time he was also watching the sniper. The Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2345. A third party? The sniper's heart jumped. Or was the man not a third party, but the superior of the Indian spiritualists? He could observe him from so far away, and it was nighttime too. Was he a perceptual spiritualist? Due to the demands of the times, there were many special and complicated branches of perceptual spiritualists in the world. Some perceptual spiritualists were very dangerous. Aluo, I found a perceptual spiritualist. He's watching me. He saw all my previous actions. Can you confirm his identity? No. Tell me his location. I'll take care of him. You continue your mission. That guy doesn't look easy to deal with, the sniper said. You better be careful. Maybe he's just bait. Luo moved quickly. He quickly brought his men to the hotel. Their ambush location wasn't far from the hotel. Their original plan was to have the sniper attack while they were in charge of support. If the Indian spiritualists escaped, they would take care of them. But now that the plan had changed, they could only give up on the ambush and go around the hotel. Soon, Qin Zhao heard knocks on the door. Qin Zhao knew who they were, or rather, what they wanted. But Zhilin was sleeping soundly in the bedroom. Qin Zhao didn't want to cause too much of a commotion. Qin Zhao opened the door and saw 8 people outside. Everyone was wearing a field uniform and was armed to the teeth. When Qin Zhao opened the door, all 8 of them had their guns pointed at him. But in the next moment, a black curtain silently rose behind them, covering the head of the person standing at the back. The person couldn't even make a sound before he fell to the ground. My daughter's sleeping. Qin Zhao smiled faintly and gestured for them to keep quiet. But the people in front of him didn't care. The leader raised his gun and smashed it at Qin Zhao's head. It was a public place, but the upper floors of the hotel were all spiritualists. The owner of the hotel also had countless connections with spiritualists, so there weren't many random people here. Qin Zhao didn't need to be secretive here. Even if he attacked, it would be fine as long as he didn't cause too much damage. The moment the leader was about to pull the trigger, Qin Zhao suddenly grabbed the barrel and twisted it upward. The barrel broke. At the same time, he closed the door behind him. To Qin Zhao, these spiritualists couldn't even be considered decent. In a few seconds, everyone was lying on the ground. These people were also dumbfounded. After all, they had fought many big and small battles. They were confident that they could fight against any spiritualist. In the end, he encountered such an enemy today. He wasn't some legendary figure in the spirit world, but his methods had made them suffer greatly. They didn't even have a chance to fight back. Qin Zhao pinned them to the ground. When he came back to his senses, Quan Du was already lying on the ground. Of course, Qin Zhao wouldn't bring them back to his room. Instead, he opened the door next door Bafra's suite. Qin Zhao didn't kill them. Their injuries were neither light nor heavy, but at least they weren't dead. Tell me, who are you? Why did you attack me? These people clenched their teeth and persevered. No one made a sound. Qin Zhao picked up a gun and aimed it at one of the female team members' head. Even so, you still won't say? Stop, the leader finally yelled. If you dare to kill our people, you'll bring big trouble to yourself. No matter who you are, we won't let you go. Really? You're threatening me now, right? Qin Zhao didn't like being threatened. Stop! Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Qin Zhao turned around and saw a few familiar people standing at the door. Warrencom, the Holy Knight, and his followers, Harkinson, Wallace, and Yuna. They were all old acquaintances who'd fought alongside him. Qin Zhao put the gun away and tilted his head to look at the acquaintances. Hi, Qin, Yuna greeted Qin Zhao. Long time no see. Don't tell me they're your subordinates. No, but they're our colleagues, members of the Holy Knights, Eurasian branch. Warrencom, kill this guy. He attacked us. The Holy Knight on the ground roared. Qin Zhao glanced at the Knights Templars on the ground and pursed his lips. So narrow-minded. Warrencom, how about I kill them all and you pretend this never happened? What do you think? The Holy Knights on the ground were all shocked. Warrencom and the other 3 looked helpless. All right, stop joking around. Let them all go. They attacked me just now. You're just going to let it go? Qin Zhao said, annoyed. It's a misunderstanding. You didn't actually get hurt or lost, right? But my heart is hurt. I'm depressed now. I was attacked by the Holy Knights I worked with before. If you don't give me a satisfactory answer, I won't be able to let it go. They just misanalyzed and thought you were an enemy, Warrencom explained helplessly. We're working closely with the Eurasian branch right now. When we heard the sniper's words, we also thought it was an unknown enemy. We didn't know it was you until we checked in at the hotel. To prevent both sides from getting hurt, we came to stop the conflict from escalating. Qin Zhao thought about it. Warrencombe's explanation was acceptable. Of course, if it wasn't for Warrencombe and the others, even if it was a misunderstanding, Qin Zhao would still kill them all. Qin Zhao helped the Templar up from the ground and patted the dust off him. Okay, it's a misunderstanding. You can go now. You'd better remember this before the leading holy knight could say anything. Qin Zhao clamped his mouth shut. Don't say anything else or I'll kill you now. Even if you want to take revenge, you should do it secretly, right? The holy knights from the Eurasian branch all looked unhappy. After all, they'd been humiliated in front of their faces and couldn't fight back. Even their words had been blocked. It felt like a fishbone was stuck in their throats. The holy knights from the Eurasian branch left, but Warrencombe and the others didn't. They clearly wanted to catch up with Qin Zhao. Of course. Qin Zhao also had some questions to ask them. Should I ask, or will you tell me yourself? Qin Zhao looked at the four before him. They'd worked together twice. They might not be like brothers, but they'd been through life and death, especially when they'd worked together for the first time against the root of the fallen. That battle had been full of danger. Back then, Qin Zhao wasn't very strong. Everyone had almost lost their lives in that battle, so they still had a deep trust. Otherwise, Qin Zhao wouldn't have let them go so easily.